Chapter 553, I Will Avenge You. As the words fell, the wall above began to collapse and vanish, as if a terrifying force was twisting the entire space. The old man in the corner opened his eyes wide. He was shocked to see that a huge crimson dragon tail was sweeping across the outside of the broken wall. Its power was astonishing, stirring up surging air waves and bursting out sonic booms, like a divine whip lashing wildly in the heavens, bringing down divine punishment. Boom! As if by design, the dragon's tail pierced through the huge hole and struck precisely at the dozens of disciples of the Jun family who were at the head of the group. In an instant, screams filled the air and blood splattered everywhere. The old man gasped for breath, his pupils contracting slightly. He stared blankly at his blue robe, which was already stained red, before raising his head slightly, his eyes filled with disbelief. They're all dead. With just one strike, more than half of the Jun family disciples were killed. Who is it? Soon, the remaining 4 or 5 members of the Jun family reacted and instantly collapsed to the ground, their faces pale, and warm urine gradually flowed from their lower bodies. Even Jun Wushuang, the leader of their younger generation, had a furrowed brow and a rare hint of anger on his face. They have some nerve, daring to make a move in front of the Jun family. But what angered him most was their remark, "You dare to lay a finger on me?" What a joke. If Jun Wushuang is not worthy of being the ruler of the world, then who in the world is worthy of being the ruler of the world? He wanted to see who dared to utter such treasonous words. Not far away, Jun Huayuan and the other elders were furious, their white eyebrows raised, and they unleashed a chilling, killing intent. Who is it? They stared intently at the smoke-filled ruins, their fists clenched tightly. They could sense that the person who had spoken and attacked earlier was among them. Amidst a chorus of fearful, angry, and complex gazes, the smoke from the ruins gradually rose, outlining 3 figures. The young man at the head of the group was dressed in flowing white robes, surrounded by celestial light, with his black hair flying wildly. He looked like a banished immortal who had stepped out of the mortal world, with an incomparably otherworldly and mysterious aura. Those deep, dark eyes radiated a terror they couldn't fathom. Merely looking into them caused their minds to tremble and their souls to tear apart. However, what shocked them the most was the naked killing intent in those eyes that was not concealed at all. The sages of the Jun family felt uneasy under their gaze, their eyelids twitching. They had never felt such intense killing intent emanating from a young boy before. Jun Huayuan was also watching, but soon he breathed a sigh of relief. He suddenly realized that the 2 people behind the boy were quite different. One of them was slightly overweight, young, and weak in cultivation, only at the God King level. The other was wearing a mask, and his aura was concealed, so he couldn't see through him, since he dares not reveal his true strength. He must not be a powerful figure. Of the 3, only the young man in the lead seemed to have some skill. Thinking he had almost been fooled, Jun Huayuan was about to speak. Roar! A dragon's roar suddenly came from afar, and the void trembled. Jun Huayuan slightly raised his eyes, and his expression suddenly froze. What is that? As the last wisp of smoke dissipated, a colossal figure that blotted out the sky appeared behind the 3 of them, like a giant dragon coiling in the void, yet not a dragon, with forked horns radiating a sacred glow. Its entire body was covered in fiery red Dao runes, and its pair of vertical pupils were like 2 bright suns, radiating golden light as they opened and closed, making them tremble and want to kneel down. For a moment, only 2 words came to mind for everyone: true dragon. At this moment, the crimson dragon, its head held high, coldly looked down at them, exuding boundless pressure. Just as the Jun family members were sweating profusely, the remaining members of Tianbao Pavilion in the corner, as well as Lu Fuge, whose garden had been turned into a wild boar, were extremely excited. Clearly, they recognized the chubby figure. These people are here to save them. On the other side, the powerful members of the Jun family present couldn't help but swallow hard and retreat. That giant tail that flashed by just now was actually the tail of a real dragon. No wonder it was so powerful. Just as these sages of the Jun family were filled with fear, a cold shout suddenly rang out. It's just a half-dragon beast. Why are you retreating? Jun Huayuan spoke, gritting his teeth, standing in front of everyone, his aura as a saint king erupting, contending with the dragon's might in the void. If he hadn't been so knowledgeable, he probably would have been truly intimidated by the other party. Upon hearing this, the Jun family members stopped in their tracks. They exchanged glances, all feeling annoyed. Yes, where would a true dragon come from in the Xian-Tian domain? Do they really think I'm a fool? True dragons are the most supreme and noble beings in heaven and earth. They would not even deign to come to a narrow place like the Xian-Tian domain, let alone to their 3 states. How absurd. On the other side, Lu Dezhu quickly rescued the survivor from the corner and then laboriously carried the wild boar from the east garden over. Father, your unfilial son has come to save you. He looked at the wounded wild boar in front of him and choked up. After checking the area thoroughly, Nangong Chen breathed a sigh of relief and said, "He's still alive. I've lifted the forbidden spell on him. He'll be back to normal in a month." Soon, he sent a wisp of the medicinal power of the Chaos Lotus into Lu Fugue's body. Seeing that his condition had improved and his wounds had healed, he took out many holy pills and asked Lu Dezhu to distribute them to the remaining survivors. Lu Dezhu was busy saving people, and when he saw the holy pill in front of him, he was stunned. Just as he was about to refuse, he was surprised to see that the white-clad figure had already disappeared, leaving only a calm sentence. "Little Red will protect you. Rest assured and recover from your injuries. I will avenge you." Shura took a deep breath and followed, his eyes as cold as ice, filled with killing intent. The tragic state of Tianbao Pavilion along the way moved even him, let alone the Crown Prince, who hated evil as much as he did. He and the Crown Prince would turn the Jun family upside down. Lu Dezhu stared blankly as they left, his nose stinging with tears, and murmured, "Please don't get hurt." Seeing 2 figures walking towards them, Jun Huayuan smiled. How ignorant were the reinforcements sent by that wild boar? Do you think 2 mere people can overthrow the entire Jun family? If that half-dragon-turned-dragon were to make a move, he would accept it. At worst, he would retreat first and temporarily avoid its sharp edge. But just these 2, TSK, TSK, TSK. I'm afraid we might even have a chance to kill or subdue this half-dragon today. What a bumper harvest. Suddenly, I felt that the deaths of those disciples were not as heartbreaking as they had been. Jun Huayuan couldn't suppress his smile as he glanced at Jun Wushuang beside him, a playful look on his face. "Wushuang, go teach that ignorant brat a lesson." Perfect timing, seeing that the kid is quite capable. I'll let my grandson have a go at it first. Chapter 554, Those Who Were Defeated by Me. Do you even deserve to be remembered? Under the hopeful gazes of the crowd, Jun Wushuang took a deep breath and stepped out, her eyes cold and sharp. He wanted to kill this arrogant brat for a long time. It was he who spoke just now, wasn't it? To dare say that one is unworthy to be the ruler of heaven and earth. What audacity. He'll make this kid pay with his life to atone for his insolence. However, before making a move, he needed to confirm what he was thinking. "Judging from your appearance, do you know me? Or have we met before?" Jun Wushuang said coldly, his eyes sharp as he scrutinized the young man. He felt a sense of familiarity with this person and felt an uneasy feeling emanating from him, along with a sense of apprehension. It was as if he had been killed by this person. "If we knew each other, I would spare your body," Jun Wushuang added somewhat uncertainly. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he was greeted by a dazzling beam of light with extremely penetrating power, like a divine spear descending from the sky and shooting towards him. Boom! Perhaps sensing the terror of the beam of light, Jun Wushuang instinctively shook his head to dodge it. However, the sage of the Jun family behind him was not so lucky. He instantly turned into blood mist and perished on the spot. Upon seeing this scene, Jun Wushuang's pupils contracted slightly, and he subconsciously met the intense gaze of the young man. It's him. In a moment of shock, a flood of unfamiliar memories rushed into my mind. He remembered that back in the Nine Heaven secret realm, it was the other party who severed his extra body, causing his heaven-mending technique to fail. The other person seems to be called Nangong Chen, and he's currently ranked number 1 on the Xiantian ranking. Jun Wushuang suddenly thought of many things, and his expression gradually became somewhat distorted. It turns out that the enemy he had always wanted to kill was this very person, who had now arrogantly come to stand in front of him. The rest of the Jun family members' expressions changed drastically, and their eyes revealed a deep sense of fear as they were about to make a move. To kill a saint in a single move, this is no ordinary prodigy. He is very likely a monster among the younger generation in the entire 3 continents. This child must not be allowed to live. Jun Huayuan had not expected that this seemingly extraordinary young man would possess such astonishing strength. Hold! He cursed, somewhat displeased, having lost a saint for nothing. At the same time, he also prepared to take action and join forces to kill this prodigy. Wait! Just as the Jun family members were about to set off, Jun Wushuang spoke up, his murderous eyes fixed on the white-clad figure. "The one who destroyed my special body in the past is this person. I will kill him with my own hands, and none of you are to interfere." Although at that time in the Nine Heaven secret realm, the other party was 2 people who joined forces to kill his alternate body. But at this critical juncture, his pride wouldn't allow him to do that. He wanted to prove to his opponent that, in a one-on-one situation, he could never be his match. Upon hearing this, the elders of the Jun family exchanged glances, all somewhat hesitant. Listen to Wu Shuang. This is his enemy. Let him kill him himself. Jun Huayuan gave the snow-clad youth a deep look and said in a deep voice, "Make your decision." He feared that if he forcibly killed the other party, Wu Shuang would develop inner demons in the future, which would be extremely detrimental to his cultivation path. Then, he looked at the man wearing the Azura mask and said with a threatening tone, "I'm sure you'd be happy to see this. After all, if we were to intervene, this battle might not even be worth continuing. This is your only chance left. In other words, if you dare to make a move, don't blame them for joining forces." Shura stopped and gave him a strange look. "Aren't you going to make a move either?" "Nature." Jun Huayuan spoke with boundless confidence, like a proud peacock. Seeing this, Shura could only shake his head, seemingly agreeing to the other party's statement. He had never seen a force so eager to send its successor to his death. To challenge the crown prince to a duel is tantamount to defying the king of hell. Ah, how strange. Shura looked at the ignorant Jun family heir with a hint of pity in his eyes. Soon, both sides stepped back, clearing a space for the two. "Do you still recognize me? Do you know who you messed with?" Jun Wushuang questioned, his Xianhuang qi rising continuously, his aura astonishing. "An enemy defeated by me. Do you think you deserve to be remembered?" Nangong Chen said coldly, a dragon aura flashing in his eyes, as if an unparalleled dragon lord was unleashing his power. Coupled with that ethereal aura, his aura instantly overwhelmed his opponent. Everyone seemed to see a 9-clawed golden dragon behind the snow-clad youth, looking down at them from above. "You!" Jun Wushuang's face turned ashen. He hadn't expected this person to be so arrogant, not even knowing his identity. He, a descendant of the prestigious Jun family and a reclusive prodigy, has never received such treatment before. "I said that day that I would definitely kill you in the future, and today I've come to keep my promise. This time, you won't have the chance to fight with numbers against fewer people." He took a deep breath, gritted his teeth, and said, his eyes filled with icy killing intent. He refused to believe that his opponent could be as arrogant as last time in a one-on-one situation. "That's a pity. I'm afraid you won't be able to keep your word today." Nangong Chen spoke calmly, his white robes fluttering, exuding an indescribable confidence. "What arrogance! I'd like to see just how much of your title as #1 on the Xiantian ranking is genuine." Jun Wushuang was enraged, his 5 fingers clenched tightly, and he suddenly attacked. Suddenly, the sky changed color, and a purple aura shot straight into the sky, with 9 divine forms condensing in the void. That was a unique phenomenon belonging to the heavenly overlord body, Overlord Fist. With a loud shout, Jun Wushuang's veins bulged as he instantly teleported in front of the snow-clad figure and slammed down with a punch. An overbearing and terrifying aura was unleashed at this moment like a violent storm. Seeing this, the expressions of the people present varied. Jun Huayan wore a faint smile, seemingly confident, and murmured, "The Azure Heaven Overlord body is an invincible physique in close combat. Apart from the ancient sacred body, who can rival it, let alone this lower realm? This kid was able to withstand a punch and survive, which means his physical training has passed the test." Shura's eyes also showed a hint of alarm, but upon hearing Jun Huayuan's words, he retorted without hesitation. "I'm afraid the one who will die will be a prodigy of your clan. No one knows how powerful the Crown Prince is, but the fact remains that no matter how strong the opponent is, they will eventually fall to his hand." "Huh." Jun Huayuan laughed upon hearing this, offering no further explanation, a hint of pity in his eyes. "Once we go up to collect the body, we'll face reality." After recovering from their injuries, the Liu family members stared intently at the battle between the two, their expressions extremely solemn. Especially Liu Fugue, the only sane among them, stared straight at that direction with his pig eyes, full of fear. With his great strength, he could naturally see the mystery within. All I can say is that this reclusive genius's strength is even more terrifying than he imagined. If this punch were delivered in the entire Xiantian domain, there would probably be only a handful of people who could withstand it, let alone those geniuses. Can the Crown Prince win? Chapter 555, Jun Huayuan Scheme. Purple fist light covered the entire hall, and surging waves of air kept rising. At this moment, the ground was shaking, and the surrounding walls were collapsing violently, just as that terrifying power was about to touch that ethereal and otherworldly figure. Everyone clearly saw that the snow-clad youth who had been standing quietly in the field had made his move. He put one hand behind his back and pushed the other out horizontally. His expression was calm, his eyes were clear, and his boundless aura suddenly rose up. His martial spirit was vast, like a young grandmaster. Clearly, he wanted to use one hand to contend against the Jun family's supreme martial art. The Overlord Fist. That's just asking for death. Jun Huayuan shook his head, seemingly knowing the outcome of the battle without needing to look any further. The rest of the Jun family members also showed disdain. However, their smiles quickly vanished, their pupils constricted sharply, as if they had witnessed a miracle. This is... An incredulous exclamation suddenly rang out. Jun Huayuan suddenly looked up and was also stunned. In the center of the arena, the young man gently pushed out a palm, easily devouring the endless fist light. Then, an even more terrifying power condensed in his palm and was released with a bang. In an instant, the celestial light shone brilliantly, reaching the pinnacle of sublimation. Some people seemed to see that the young man's arms contained pieces of crystal-clear, immortal bones, bursting with Taoist charm. Some people also saw amazing phenomena appear beside him, such as a divine king standing tall, a divine elephant suppressing the stars, divine thunder from the nine heavens, and a Qilin swallowing clouds. One incredible palm strike incorporated a unique skill they had never seen before. Boom! The void trembled, and heaven and earth seemed about to be swallowed up. As the light from the punch dissipated, a blood-stained afterimage was seen, so fast that no one could see it clearly, and it flew backward. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of the stone wall cracking continued incessantly as it continued to collapse. Of course, along with it, Jun Wushuang's invincible belief also collapsed. The sound of the impact didn't completely dissipate until several breaths later, but the boy in the arena remained standing, radiating divine light. An eerie silence fell over the main hall. Everyone stared blankly at the scene before them, speechless. Impossible. Soon, a weak voice filled with disbelief rang out, slowly pulling everyone's thoughts back. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound. From the collapsed building, some distance away, a dark figure slowly rose from the pool of blood. He clutched his chest with his left hand, his eyes filled with horror. His black clothes were tattered and stained with blood, and there were still many pebbles scattered on them. What's most shocking is his right arm, which is hanging limply like a swaying pendulum. At this moment, Jun Wushuang's black crown was shattered, and his noble robes were stained with dust. Most importantly, his once invincible aura seemed to have vanished completely, making him no different from an ordinary genius. If not told otherwise, who would recognize that this utterly destitute young man was actually the legendary reclusive genius? This palm strike not only shattered the bones in his right arm, but also his invincible belief. Jun Wushuang's eyes were lifeless as he let the purple, domineering blood drip down. He couldn't understand how anyone in this world could have a physical body stronger than his heavenly tyrant body. What's even more incomprehensible is why, as two of the most outstanding talents of the same era, there is such a vast difference in their physical abilities, as if they were separated by an insurmountable chasm. Keep in mind, the other party didn't even use both hands, only one hand. Perhaps it was the first time Jun Wushuang had tasted defeat, and he remained lost in thought for a long time. But Nangong Chen wouldn't give him any chance. His figure flashed like lightning as he charged towards Jun Wushuang. Upon seeing this, Jun Huayuan, who was not far away, became restless and wanted to go to his grandson's side, but he was locked in by an extremely terrifying aura. Jun Huayuan felt a chill in his heart. He looked back and met a pair of emotionless eyes, and his mind went blank. He believed he had killed countless people, but in the other person's eyes, he saw an endless mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. In an instant, he finally discerned the other party's cultivation level from the leaked aura. It turned out to be an early-stage Saint King, the same level as him. Although they were at the same level, he had a premonition that if he made a move, he would definitely not be a match for the other party. The other party's foundation was deeper than he had imagined, and it was probably only the clan leader who could suppress him. But the sky is high and the land is far away, and the clan leader is on the other side of the sky and sea. How can he get here? Jun Huayuan's eyelids trembled slightly, and he secretly clenched his hands. Recalling everything that happened today, he couldn't help but have a bad feeling. Apart from the useless fat man, the rest of the three people and one beast who came were all ruthless. 2 Saint Kings, plus a prodigy whose strength is no less than that of his grandson. Who exactly are these people? When did this group of people emerge in the 3 states? Isn't this the critical moment when the demon race is invading? Why don't they join the fight? For a moment, countless questions and panic filled his mind. Could it be that I'm going to fail here today? A thought of crisis, which had never occurred before, suddenly arose in my mind. Jun Huayuan's breathing became rapid, and a few drops of cold sweat trickled down his aged face. The elder of the Jun family, who was about to remind him, suddenly found his words stuck in his throat and could not be uttered. The Grand Elder was actually sweating profusely? He couldn't have seen wrong, could he? When has the Grand Elder ever reacted like this? What should the young master do? You must know that terrifyingly powerful genius is already charging towards him. The clan elder was extremely anxious and hurriedly asked, Elder, should we lend a hand to the young master? The other clan elders also looked over. Jun Huaiyuan remained silent. Now that he was being watched by the other party's Saint King, he naturally could not make a move. He must find the only chance of survival today. Soon, almost unconsciously, his gaze fell upon the figures beneath the red dragon in the distance, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Yes, isn't the other side concerned about these people? If he captures them, wouldn't he be able to turn the tide of battle? However, the premise of this plan is to let my grandson hold on a little longer. He knew his grandson's strength well. Although he was currently outmatched in one move, he wasn't going to lose so easily. In other words, if it were really that easy to lose, the Jun family wouldn't have gone to such lengths to cultivate their opponent over the years. Once the grandson's constitution fully manifests, it's really hard to say who will win or lose. Thinking of this, Jun Huaiyuan felt a weight lift from his shoulders, and a smile appeared on his lips. You all go and help Wu Shuang. Yes. The elders of the 10 saints bowed slightly, and their eyes regained their light. They wanted to make a move for a long time. Why give the other side a one-on-one opportunity when they clearly outnumber each other? Their advantage lies in their large numbers. Just as they set off, a chilling blade of light suddenly descended from the darkness. That killing intent was terrifying beyond measure, almost locking onto the lifelines of the 10 saints. Junhuan pointed out, and in an instant, a crimson light as strong as the sun tore through the night, rushing forward with immense power and blocking the blade's gleam. He gave a meaningful look as he gazed at the owner of the flashing blade. If you insist on fighting, I am not unwilling to oblige. Although he was no match for his opponent in a long battle, he could still put up a fight in a short time. After all, he was a true Saint King. As long as his grandson on the other side receives reinforcements and kills that brat, the enemy will lose their leader, and he refuses to believe that they cannot turn defeat into victory today. Chapter 556. The battle on both sides. Soon, an even more terrifying power than before erupted in the void, causing the entire world to tremble. The two beams of light were almost impossible to catch, one black and one gray, intertwined at an unimaginable speed. Each collision generated an astonishing shockwave. The aura unique to the Saint King spread throughout the entire sky and enveloped the entire Sunset City. At this moment, the cultivators in Sunset City turned pale and their bodies trembled uncontrollably. Some powerful figures even put down what they were doing and rushed out of the door to look in the direction of the Heavenly Treasure Pavilion. What on earth happened? A quasi-saint, who was quite powerful in the area, spoke with a look of horror on his face, as the extremely surging residual power constantly impacted his mind. Soon he broke out in a cold sweat, his legs went weak, and he collapsed to his knees. He couldn't believe that even a wisp of residual power could intimidate him like this. Just what kind of being was fighting above the Heavenly Treasure Pavilion? Little Red, hovering in the sky, took in everything. After seeing that no one dared to approach the Heavenly Treasure Pavilion, it withdrew its gaze and looked at the two people in the void. It shook its dragon tail and hummed. These two are evenly matched, but Uncle Shura is slightly better. It seems that there's nothing for me to do for the time being. I'd better focus on completing my master's task. Soon, the dragon's whiskers swayed, and a burst of dragon energy was exhaled, transforming into a crimson barrier that enveloped the Lu family members below, blocking the remaining power from above. Lu Dezhu also breathed a sigh of relief. He looked away with some fear, and his breathing gradually calmed down. Hiss! What merit or ability does Lu Dezhu possess to witness such figures battling in his lifetime? These are all the most powerful experts in the Xian-Tian domain today. Go, Uncle Shura. Kill that bastard. He muttered something under his breath, clenched his fist, and looked up at the crimson dragon above with a sense of something. On the way here with Nangong Chen, he learned the name of this being. Perhaps it was the sound of the battle that broke out here that temporarily eased the sadness in his heart. Upon hearing this, Lu Fuge, who was lying on the ground, felt his eyelids twitch. He glanced at his son and thought to himself, "How dare you call me Uncle Shura?" Lu Fugue shook his head, glanced slightly at the sky, and a deep sense of awe appeared in his eyes. When the Jun family arrived, he knew that the domineering old man must be the legendary Grand Elder Jun Huaiyuan of the Jun family. The deeds the other party has done are widely known throughout the 3 states, and are famous far and wide. People in the world feared him to some extent. Even the once most powerful family was unwilling to provoke him. I've heard that his cultivation level has already surpassed the limits of a saint and reached the pinnacle of the entire Tianyuan domain. There's a saying that goes, it's better to provoke the king of hell than to provoke the Jun family, especially the extremely domineering and protective Jun Huayuan. It is easy to imagine how much fear Jun Huayuan alone brought to the three states back then. However, this fear is also justified. It is estimated that all the saints combined would not be a match for the opponent in a single move. Lu Fuguwei thought to himself that during his exchange with his opponent, he had already realized the huge gap between them. It was like a mayfly gazing at the moon. Yet this very person, who has instilled fear in the three states for tens of thousands of years, is now being fought to a standstill by the protector of the double-pupiled one, and is even subtly at a disadvantage. It seems that there is a huge gap between the top powers. Today, the arrogant and domineering Jun family has finally been brought to their knees. There was a hint of satisfaction in his eyes, but his anger still burned. But not long after, he seemed to realize something, and many worries arose in his heart. He looked towards another battlefield. The figures of the 10 saints who had just stood where the Jun family had stood had already disappeared, and they all went to Jun Wushuang's side. Only a portion of the Jun family members remained, staring blankly at everything that was happening. The previous nonchalance had vanished from their faces, replaced by a deathly pallor. Who could have imagined that things would turn out this way? Those who were laughing and joking with them just a moment ago died right before their eyes, without even leaving behind their bodies. Even the young master had his Tao heart shattered by a single punch from this unknown monster. Even their revered and respected elder was now struggling to fight the powerful enemy in the sky. It's all right, it's all right. 10 elders from the clan have gone to assist the young master. As long as we can kill that boy, we still have hope. One of the 3 who had just received the Grand Elder's commendation spoke up under pressure, his forehead covered in cold sweat. The other 2 nodded frantically, like chickens pecking at rice. Regardless of the outcome of this battle, those who voluntarily led the Jun family into the fray will undoubtedly face severe punishment. Now, they can only hope to atone for their sins and have their punishment reduced. They really didn't know that this powerful force from the 3 states, which was incredibly wealthy, had such a background. You should have said so earlier. If you had, they wouldn't have chased after us. It's all that bitch's fault. She must have known something to lure them here. The 3 men silently vented their anger on the young woman who refused to obey them. Unfortunately, that young woman had already become a victim of their actions. Just as they were filled with fear, a scream like that of a pig being slaughtered suddenly rang out. The disciples of the Jun family all turned to look, and when they saw it clearly, their pupils trembled slightly. Their young master, whom they regarded as a god, and who was the undisputed leader of the younger generation of the Jun family, was now being pinned down by the white-robed youth and unable to move. Dying once before wasn't enough for you. You still dare to jump in front of me? Where did you get the guts? Nangong Chen stomped his silver boots hard on Jun Wushuang's head, his face indifferent and his voice devoid of any emotion. Jun Wushuang's head was throbbing with pain. He felt an immense force pressing down on his head, causing his skull to shatter and collapse. Purple blood kept flowing from the corner of his mouth. Do you know that this Tianbao pavilion is under my protection? If you touch them, are you prepared to have your entire clan buried with you? In his dazed state, with his consciousness shattered, he only heard the other party's cold and domineering words, and a hint of regret arose in his eyes. Both are at the Saint realm, but why is the other person so much stronger than him? Is this still the 3 provinces he knows? If he had known this would happen, he would have avoided this place. It's all those 3 despicable clansmen's fault. Suddenly, the words Lord Junyu had spoken that day echoed in his ears. This person's extraordinary 9th-grade talent is nothing but a facade. Deceitful? If this person is deceitful, then what is he? At this moment, he was absolutely certain that the man in front of him was the legendary 9th-rank expert. Otherwise, how could he be so much stronger than him? He, Junyu, knows nothing. It seems I have no choice but to use the trump card my father gave me. Jun Wushuang took a deep breath and, using his only movable left hand, crushed a talisman. In an instant, a full-force attack surpassing the peak of a saint erupted from his body, slashing straight at the person in front of him. At the same time, the 10 elders who had come were overjoyed to see this scene and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 557 Killing Jun Wushuang. The Jun family elder goes mad with furious. Die! Jun Wushuang's dazed expression dissipated, finally revealing a hint of resentment. This was the Saint King's all-out attack in his later years, and also the biggest trump card left to him by his father. He dared to declare that no one in the entire Xiantian domain could withstand this attack. Now he's using it to deal with this contemporary prodigy from Zhongzhou. To be honest, He doesn't feel any heartache at all. After all, you can ask your family for more trump cards, but if you lose your life, you have nothing left. Moreover, the opponent's strength and aptitude far exceeded his expectations. If he were allowed to grow for a period of time, he would definitely threaten the Jun family's position in the entire Xiantian domain and become an obstacle on his path of cultivation. Using this trump card to save this person's life would be perfect. Not good. In the void, after Shura sensed that aura, his pupils shrank slightly, and he suddenly stopped, intending to go down to rescue him. Jun Huayan, who had just been hit, was pale and quickly retreated dozens of steps. Just as he was about to catch his breath, he noticed that the person in front of him was about to leave, so he immediately perked up. You think you can leave? No way. He ignited the essence of his lifeblood, circulated the undying scripture, and his eyes shone with a brilliant crimson light as he moved forward to intercept. In an instant, the leg, enveloped in a force of wind and thunder, swept out horizontally, creating a loud explosion in the void, scattering the clouds, and heading straight for the opponent's body. He knew very well that the battle below was now at a critical juncture, and he couldn't let the enemy destroy everything. As long as we stop them and let that kid die here, today's problem will be easily solved. Shura was struck hard from behind and spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing that the old man from the Jun family had already stood in front of him, Shura's eyes gradually turned bloodshot, and he unleashed a ferocity that was not usually seen. He was on his way to save the crown prince, so why was he stopping me? You old bastard, I'll kill you. Shura roared and charged at his opponent with the dagger in his hand. At the same time, he looked down, his eyes filled with worry. But before long, the worry in his eyes disappeared. He was shocked to see that the blow that had startled him had landed on his own crown prince, leaving him completely unharmed, with only a corner of his white robe torn. Could it be that he was mistaken about the astonishing aura he felt just now? He was puzzled, but he knew that now that the weight had been lifted from his heart, he should deal with the person in front of him properly. Jun Huayan was also observing below, but when he saw that unbelievable scene, his expression suddenly froze. Of course, before he could even process his emotions, an even stronger attack than before came crashing down on him like a storm. At this moment, Jun Huayan was not the only one who reacted in the same way. Below, Jun Wushuang stared blankly at the snow-clad youth before her mind a complete blank, as if her computer had crashed. How is this possible? The full-force blow his father left him didn't even tear the opponent's clothes. He could see more clearly than anyone else that beneath that tattered snow robe, there was clearly another layer of white clothing. The 10 elders of the Jun family, who had been smiling, also lost their smiles and revealed disbelief. Are you just teasing them? Wasn't that the clan leader's all-out attack? How come the other party is still standing here unharmed? Before they could even catch their breath, the pig-like screams rang out again. They quickly looked up. The young master of their own family was lifted up like a chick by the other party. His neck was gripped tightly, and his face turned extremely red. Let me go, Jun Wushuang said painfully. At the same time, the domineering blood within him erupted, transforming into 4 terrifying divine figures in the void, which attacked the person in front of him. There is a divine cauldron emanating celestial energy, a Kuanping soaring with outstretched wings, and the 10 most terrifying beasts in the world, a dragon and a phoenix. For an ordinary member of the Jun family, cultivating 2 divine forms in their entire life is already considered an extraordinary talent. However, Jun Wushuang, still in his youth, has already cultivated 4 divine forms, which can be said to make him stand out among his generation. The 4 superimposed divine images, placed within the saint realm, can already be considered invincible within the same realm, suppressing everything. But who could have known that Nangong Chen was even more terrifying than him? Nangong Chen summoned the human emperor sword with his left hand, and divine light shone forth, with a terrifying sword intent arising from his double pupils. Break! Nangong Chen uttered a single word, his voice cold and indifferent. The next moment, the emperor's sword left his palm, like a giant dragon breaking free. Time seemed to stand still at this moment, flowing slowly. A law unique to reincarnation was being performed in the void. The sword light, as bright as a rainbow, flashed and weaved through the 4 divine forms. In an instant, all 4 divine forms shattered and turned into a shower of stars. Jun Wushuang fell completely silent, unable to utter a word. He never expected that his proud divine physiognomy was nothing in front of the other party, and he was no match for him at all. On his deathbed, he suddenly remembered that the list of Z family prodigies on the Xiantian ranking had all disappeared recently, and his throat went dry as he asked, "Were the Z family members also killed by you?" "Yes," Nangong Chen responded coldly, offering no further explanation, and suddenly exerted force with his 5 fingers, extinguishing its last vestige of life. Jun Wushuang's eyes gradually lost their color, filled with a trace of resentment and a trace of relief, before she collapsed to the ground, dying on the spot. He did not regret provoking the other party in the 9 Heaven Secret Realm. His only regret was that he was too weak. He had understood this principle since he was born surrounded by stars. In this world, talent and strength are everything. The strong are those who lord it over the weak. The reason he was able to let go of his worries was because he wasn't alone underground. There were people with him, such as the Z family, and there was Z Shui, whom he longed for. Of course, what he didn't know was that Z Shui was the only survivor of the Z family, and she was still working for her enemy, and even had developed some admiration for him. If Jun Wushuang knew this, she would probably want to rise from the dead to stop this marriage. Young master, the 10 elders of the Jun family, who witnessed all of this, let out a mournful cry, their faces deathly pale. Who could have imagined that the most promising offspring of the Jun family would die in these 3 states? You're finished. You're completely finished. The Jun family's wrath will surely be unleashed throughout the 3 states, and that lord will surely unleash divine punishment. One of the clan elders suffered a mental breakdown and pointed at Nangong Chen. Oh, so what? Nangong Chen casually tossed the corpse in his hand away like a stray dog, a hint of disgust flashing in his eyes, before responding to them with utter indifference. He glanced at his robe, where there was a broken thread, and frowned slightly. He even tore up his favorite white robe. Such a simple death is too easy for him. Seeing his nonchalant attitude, the 10 people were speechless for a long time. Is this child truly unafraid of the Jun family's wrath? Or is it simply due to his own ignorance? They were puzzled, but they all knew that if their young master died, they wouldn't survive either. The only way to make amends now is to kill the arrogant and madman on the spot and avenge the young master. Chapter 558, Jun Huayuan flees, Heavenly 7 Killings Formation. No! In the void, Jun Huayuan happened to see Jun Wushuang die. His pupils suddenly contracted, and he let out a long roar. He couldn't believe that his prodigy grandson would die at the hands of that unknown kid. That was the future of the Jun family. How could he just die like that? How could he explain this to his entire clan, and to that young master from the upper realm? He hadn't yet told the other party about what he'd heard that day about the Ji family's imperial son. In an instant, Jun Huayuan's eyes lost their light, as if he had aged decades, and his whole body slumped down. However, in that brief moment of distraction, a cold glint flashed in Shura's eyes, and with a swift movement, the blade's light shot out instantly. A line of blood emerged from Jun Huayuan's body. Sizzle. The next moment, Jun Huayuan's arm was severed, and blood splattered everywhere. Perhaps stimulated by such excruciating pain, Jun Huayuan quickly regained his senses. With his remaining hand, he made a hand seal, and in an instant, runes flashed, and a golden light shot out from his eyes. A golden light, like lightning, transformed into a long sword, blocking the oncoming blade. Call! Jun Huayuan gasped for breath, still shaken. If he had reacted a few seconds slower, the blade would have been aimed at his neck. Seeing that his attack was blocked, Shura wasn't too surprised. He glanced down and sneered. I already told you. Only the pride of your clan will die. Do you believe me now? He breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, his own crown prince was capable enough to defeat even the prodigy from a reclusive family. Otherwise, if he were to be constantly distracted by what's below, it would be a burden for a warrior of his level. Even during the brief pause in thought, Shura's gaze never wavered, remaining fixed intently on his opponent. This is the quality of an assassin, something that the Jun family's mindless brutes can't match. As soon as the other party makes the slightest sound, he will mercilessly kill with the dagger in his hand. Just then, the old man's face twitched slightly, and a cruel smile appeared on his lips. His figure flashed, and he transformed into a long rainbow, rushing downwards at a speed that tore through the void, bursting out with a speed completely different from that in the previous battle. This speed is something that a Saint King in the early stages could not possess. Shura's expression changed, and he followed closely behind without the slightest hesitation. He knew that the other party was probably going to target the Crown Prince. After all, the Crown Prince had personally killed this prodigy from the Jun family. Damn, how can he be so fast? Seeing that even with all his might, he still couldn't catch up, Shura's eyes grew increasingly tense. Just then, Jun Huayuan suddenly turned around and launched a surprise attack, charging straight towards the Liu family and others at the feet of the Crimson Dragon. He wasn't that foolish to attack a prodigy with hidden trump cards. He had seen the Saint King's full-force attack hit the opponent just now. He was certain that there was an unimaginable treasure hidden inside the other party's robe. So he turned his attention to killing those weak ants. He was determined to take a group of people hostage, and he refused to believe that they would not care. There is still hope today. Seeing a point of light rushing towards him, Shaoqi raised his head slightly, put away his lazy attitude. His dragon whiskers fluttered, and a cold light burst forth from his dragon eyes. That terrifying, soaring dragon might seem to be warning the other party not to act recklessly. Although it usually loves to sleep in, when it is awake, it will absolutely carry out Nangong Chen's orders without reservation. Just like right now. Upon seeing this, Jun Huayuan not only did not slow down, but actually sped up considerably. His eyes were very calm, as if he had already expected it. He made his move quickly, casually scattering a wisp of blue powder onto the giant dragon head. This is the dragon-slaying powder, so you'd better go to sleep, Jun Huayuan said with icy eyes. Upon hearing this, the Azura behind him had a change in expression. Mengjiao powder. Isn't that the most effective powder in the world against dragon-like creatures? Legend has it that it was made from the scales of the ancient deer, the natural enemy of dragons, and could quickly render any dragon unconscious, thus impairing its mobility. Shura couldn't help but feel a little regretful. How could he not have expected the other party to have this trick up their sleeve? Clearly, he realized that the other party's target was not the crown prince at all, but these people from Tianbao Pavilion. At this moment, the crystalline powder, as radiant as light, scattered in the air, creating a breathtakingly beautiful scene. Jun Huayuan didn't stop moving. He even boldly walked up to the red-haired dragon and attacked without any scruples, preparing to intercept the people below right under its nose. But just as he stretched out his only remaining left hand, a whooshing sound suddenly rang out. Jun Huayuan stopped, as if sensing extreme danger. His pupils contracted, and within his field of vision, a huge crimson dragon tail lashed out at him. Boom! With a crisp sound, Jun Huayuan's body was smashed into a bloody mist, leaving not even a trace. I've already said, I'm a dragon, not a jiao. A child's voice, muffled and strained, rang out, filled with strong dissatisfaction. What? The master has already promoted him to a dragon. How can there be such a blind person who calls himself a jiao? They're really blind. Have you ever seen a dragon with claws? Have you ever seen a dragon with a meat bun on its head? Humph. Upon seeing this, Shura breathed a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to laugh and cry at the same time, he saw a ray of spiritual light quickly disappear as the blood mist dissipated. Where do you think you're going? Without a second thought, Shura gave chase. Heavenly 7 Killings formation, activate. On the other side, 10 voices rang out simultaneously. The 10 sages of the Jun family formed an array at the same time, their eyes filled with apprehension. They had witnessed the opponent's strength firsthand. Even a monstrous talent like Jun Wushuang had died at the opponent's hands. They dared not gamble on how much of the opponent's strength they still possessed. The only sure thing is to use a formation to completely trap and kill the enemy. This is their advantage of having more people, so they can't possibly not use it. The moment the flower falls, 7 green, poisonous lights burst forth from the ground, enveloping the open space where the snow-clad boy stood. The entire earth trembled, and colorful scorpion tails burst from the ground, revealing a fierce glint, their scales gleaming with a cold light. This is the 7-colored scorpion, the most venomous scorpion in the world. But that's not all. From the due west side, a swarm of flying insects with flapping blue wings attacked. Their tentacles were as sharp as blades, easily cutting through many of the stone walls, and their mouths were filled with man-eating venom. To the south, toxic gases are also emanating from the land, and power grids are intertwined, and so on. Clearly, these 7 deadly weapons are the most terrifying killing tools in the world. The 7 Killings formation of heaven was once considered a forbidden technique by many forces in the 3 states because its destructive power was too terrifying. Every time it was summoned, it would cause bloodshed and gore, which was against the natural order. But who would have thought that the Jun family not only did not ban it, but also improved it even more thoroughly? Upon seeing the formation begin, the 10 sages of the Jun family simultaneously breathed a sigh of relief. They had never seen anyone survive this formation. It was almost as if once the formation was activated, one had already stepped 1 foot into the underworld. You kill my clansmen, pay with your life. An elder from a powerful family rebuked them, his holy might undiminished. No sooner had the words been spoken than a cold voice rang out. Pay with your life? Who gave you the confidence to make me pay with my life? These pieces of trash under your feet. Chapter 559 likes to bully the weak. The Liu family's great revenge is achieved. Pay with your life? Who gave you the confidence to make me pay with my life? These pieces of trash under your feet. Nangong Chen stood in the center of the killing formation, unhurried, his white robes fluttering in the wind, and asked in return. Huh? Even facing death, you remain so arrogant. Do you really think you can escape from the hands of 10 saints like us? An elder of the June family scoffed, his eyes flashing with murderous intent. Even if we perish today, we will take you with us and make you pay with your life for our clan's descendants. That's right. With a few cold voices, the 10 elders of the Monarch clan unleashed their full cultivation, continuously channeling spiritual energy into the formation. Within the formation, the bodies of the 7-colored scorpion, the myriad poisonous insects, and other ferocious beasts collided more and more, their eyes flashing with a deep green light as they rushed towards the snow-clad figure. The killing trap has been set. Under the 7 killings formation of heaven, the opponent has absolutely no chance of survival. Stubborn to the end, Nangong Chen sighed softly, and, under the cold gazes of the crowd, he stood with his hands behind his back, moved slightly, and his silver boots landed on the ground. That kick seemed to have landed right on the heart of the formation. The next moment, a holy silver light burst forth from beneath the silver boots, filling the entire formation. Some poisonous insects that were just about to break through the soil suddenly froze at the moment of launching their attack. Immediately afterwards, it vanished from the spot. The raging fire calmed the poisonous gas, dissolved the lightning net, and the entire Heavenly 7 Killings formation began to crumble and disintegrate. After a few breaths, there was no more movement, and everything in front of us disappeared. Nangong Chen broke the formation with a single kick. What kind of tactic is this? The elder of the June family who had just reprimanded him narrowed his eyes, looking as if he had seen a ghost. The others also wore expressions of shock and stiffness, remaining silent. Did the opponent break the formation with a single kick? How is this possible? What kind of sorcery did he use? After a while, a member of the June family came to his senses and angrily pointed at Nangong Chen's nose. Nangong Chen shook his head slightly without responding. After all, such a heaven-reaching method as Go Tian was impossible to explain to these half-baked people. Seeing that he remained silent, the 10 elders of the June family all moved. With perfect coordination, some brandished blades, intending to take the young man's head, while others summoned massive cauldrons, as large as mountains, hoping to suppress him on the spot. In short, a barrage of killing attacks erupted at this moment. So what if the formation is broken? The enemy will still die today. With 10 against 1, there's almost no chance of losing. Do you really enjoy bullying the weak with numbers? Nangong Chen sighed helplessly. This world not only doesn't respect the elderly and care for the young, but also likes to gang up on the few. What, you're not convinced? If you've got the guts, call me a man. The elder of the Yu Jun family sneered, as if looking at a dead man. Upon hearing this, Nangong Chen raised an eyebrow slightly and glanced at him thoughtfully. Even in the face of the overwhelming onslaught, he didn't even flinch. With a gentle lift of his left hand, he suddenly summoned the human emperor's reincarnation disc, and his body radiated immortal light. Spiritual energy, even more astonishing than the vast ocean, was continuously flowing into the human emperor's reincarnation disc. The next moment, in the void behind the boy, terrifying beings appeared. Some had domineering faces and dragon horns on their heads, while others were ancient remnants with enormous bodies that could break through half of the palace. With each breath, the void shattered. Without exception, they were all ferocious beasts above the level of saints, coming with overwhelming force. Roughly estimated, there were more than 20 of them, their gazes sweeping over the June family members with utter indifference. The 10 members of the June family quickly stopped their attack, stunned in midair, their eyes somewhat unfocused. This was a reaction that only comes after witnessing something truly shocking, even more so than before. Were all these things? Could he be this official's accomplice? That's absolutely impossible. These are all ferocious beasts, with a long-standing feud with humans. How could they possibly help the other side? Just as they were trying to comfort themselves and deny the thought, that cold voice rang out like a ghost, echoing through the heavens and earth, making them shudder. Since he wanted to gang up on you, then so be it. Nangong Chen responded what the other party had just said with icy eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, more than 20 golden beasts poured out of the void. All that could be heard were cries of agony and screams, rising and falling like a grand death symphony. The remaining disciples of the June family, who were dressed in bright and beautiful clothes, witnessed the whole process from a distance. Their faces were deathly pale, and they could hardly see any color in their skin. Tap, tap. The sound of silver boots landing on the ground grew louder and louder in their ears. They turned to look, their hearts stopped for a moment, and their breathing became rapid. In their eyes, the white-clad youth, like the Grim Reaper, was walking towards them. Under the fearful gazes of the crowd, Nangong Chen stopped and glanced at them. With just a glance, some people fainted on the spot. The others, who were a bit bolder, got goosebumps and trembled as they looked at the other person. What are you going to do to us? One of the disciples who had just received praise from Jun Huayuan stepped forward and asked in a trembling voice. Let's cripple our cultivation. Nangong Chen didn't say much, only giving them a cold look. As soon as the words were spoken, the disciples exchanged glances and saw the joy in each other's eyes. They naturally understood the unspoken meaning behind each other's words. Abandoning their cultivation? Isn't that just letting them repent and giving them a break? They still have hope of survival. Soon, a painful cry rang out. It was Jun family prodigy, a quasi-saint realm expert, who had shattered his dantian and spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing someone make the first move, the Jun family members, whose nerves were always on edge, could no longer hold back. They gritted their teeth, hardened their faces, and slapped their own dantian. With the Grand Elder's fate unknown, and the 10 clan elders most likely perishing on the spot, they alone no longer have the strength to contend with the enemy. If their cultivation isn't crippled, then they'll be the ones who die. As long as they live, they will have a chance to make a comeback, report to their clan, and have this official be beheaded and their dantian restored. Before long, the ground was covered in bright red. These Jun family disciples, whose cultivation had dissipated, all looked at Nangong Chen with extreme weakness. Can you let us go now? Someone asked. Nangong Chen laughed, a mocking smile playing on his lips, his voice cold and indifferent. When did I say that I would let you go if you crippled your own cultivation? Before these people could speak, he looked at Lu Dezhu and the others not far away, and waved to them, signaling them to come over. Soon, Lu Dezhu came running up to him, followed by Lu's father, who had been transformed into a wild boar, and the surviving members of the Lu family. Big brother, what do you need us for? Lu Dezhu asked in a low voice, his eyes burning with desire. Witnessing his enemies die at Nangong Chen's hands filled him with satisfaction, and he felt increasingly grateful to him. Your Lu family's revenge is your own responsibility. Nangong Chen gave him a deep look, patted him on the shoulder, and then left. Lu Dezhu paused, suppressing the urge to rush over and express his gratitude, and took a deep breath. Then, looking at the Jun family disciples who were powerless to even kill a chicken, he suddenly clenched his fists, his eyes filled with killing intent. While treating his father's injuries, he learned the whole story of how the Jun family massacred their Tianbao pavilion. Just because Tianbeige wanted to seek justice for the dead girl, these treacherous Jun family members became greedy and used this as a pretext to slaughter them. He recognized the girl. She was the maid who had taken care of him since childhood. She was a very kind older sister who, even in her dying moments, had not yielded to the tyranny of those 3 men. Looking at the cold body lying on the ground, Lu Dezhu couldn't cry. All he felt was rage. These Jun family disciples, slumped on the ground, were filled with despair, especially the 3 who had been the first to receive the Grand Elder's commendation. They were now utterly heartbroken. They're not stupid. They know exactly what they've done. They just don't want to face it. If I had known this would happen, I should have smashed my own lifeline. Someone spoke with obvious regret, their face pale. If they had fallen into the hands of that white-robed youth, they might not have suffered so much before their deaths, but they fell into the hands of these people from the lower class whom they had once oppressed. They knew very well that what awaited them was inhuman torture, but they could tell from the other party's eyes how much anger and hatred was suppressed in their hearts. Not long after, an even more agonizing cry than before echoed throughout the dilapidated Tianbao pavilion. Chapter 560: The Shift in a Young Man's Mindset. Half a day later, as the last scream disappeared, Nangong Chen, who was waiting outside the door, slightly opened his eyes, glanced at the sky, and walked straight towards the pavilion. At this moment, the interior of Tianbao Pavilion was in complete disarray, littered with corpses. Among them were the Jun family elders who died with their eyes wide open, and the Jun family members whose pupils had been swollen from torture. Apart from the Grand Elder Jun Huayan, who is still on the run, it can be said that the Jun family has been completely wiped out today. Not far away, Lu Dezhu and others were weeping bitterly, holding some corpses, their tears streaming down their faces and their hands stained with blood. To the disciples of the Jun family, they are butchers, but to these warm corpses on the ground, they're their only family in this world. The sobbing continued. Nangong Chen watched silently. He had never seen Lu Dezhu, who was always so carefree and jovial, with such a sorrowful expression. If only I had come faster. Nangong Chen felt somewhat guilty, blaming himself for failing to protect the forces under his command despite being the chief of the Righteous Path Alliance. He wondered why these reclusive families could be so arrogant and domineering as to slaughter cultivators from 3 states. They even take this behavior for granted. Even Nangong Chen himself, who was the young master of Tianyuan Prefecture since childhood, never relied on his status to bully men and women in the Great Zhou. On the contrary, if he encounters any common people being oppressed, he will stand up for them. Is it really happiness to build your own happiness on the suffering of others? A look of bewilderment appeared in Nangong Chen's eyes. When he was a child, his father once asked him with a smile, "Chener, it's not just the Great Zhou. Throughout the entire 3 states and the entire Xiantian domain, these injustices are happening all the time. Do you really want to help them too?" Nangong Chen shook his head. He was not a saint. The reason he helped was because he happened to encounter them. He couldn't stand their disgusting faces and the indelible humanity in their hearts, so he stepped in to help. This is a very simple reason. He simply did what he could, just to find peace of mind and make himself feel better. Hearing this answer, his father seemed quite satisfied, patted his shoulder, and laughed. "You're just like me, unlike that woman." Then, he said earnestly, "From now on, whether it's about being a person or doing things, Chener, I hope you understand that you must act within your capabilities and not overreach. When you encounter an invincible force, no matter how frustrated you feel, you have to endure it and not force your way out. Other people's deaths have nothing to do with me, Nangong Chen, but your death is a big deal. You are your parents' only son, and you are the only young master of Tianyuan Prefecture. Those who die by stubbornly sticking their necks out throughout history are called heroes. But to put it bluntly, they are irresponsible towards their families. Under the circumstances, is it really necessary to lack that little bit of strength? Although this may sound cruel, it is the truth. It's not that your father doesn't respect them. On the contrary, looking at the whole world, Tianyuan Prefecture is probably the most generous and respectful force for martyrs. But I have my own selfish reasons. I don't want you to do this. You have to understand that responsibility is often matched with a person's ability. What kind of ability you have determines what kind of work you do. Of course, as long as your abilities reach a certain level, I will support you in whatever you want to do, even if you want to eradicate all injustices in the world. Such figures have existed throughout history, not as heroes, but as saints, as rulers of the world. You will be supported, loved, and respected by all the people of the world. People in the world will revere you like a god. You will enjoy the most top-tier resources and the most cutting-edge cultivation techniques in the entire Xiantian domain. Even your every word and action will affect the changing landscape of the world. That feeling is really great, probably every man's dream. But having discussed the advantages, what about the disadvantages? The disadvantage is that you will carry the hopes of countless people, and you will bear the responsibility for the rise and fall of the entire world. If the sky falls, others can hide, but you can't. You have to withstand it. You must use every inch of your flesh and blood to withstand it, until your body dies and your soul is annihilated. So, if one day you really face such a choice, I hope you think it through carefully. What kind of person do you want to become? And what kind of life do you want to live? After hearing these words, Nangong Chen only remembered that he seemed to have made a choice when he was young. A child's voice, clear and resonant, echoed in my mind. I want to be the ruler of the world. I want to be a saint. I want to live a legendary life. Now, those words from his childhood have flown across time and struck Nangong Chen squarely on the brow. All right, Chener, I believe in you. You will surely become the ruler of the world in the future. In my memory, my father was laughing heartily, but a hint of loneliness flashed deep in his eyes. I came to my senses. Nangong Chen took a deep breath, his eyes clear and bright, and his entire demeanor underwent a special change from the inside out. His figure grew increasingly firm, his white robes fluttering in the wind, and he already possessed the aura of a human leader. He had thought it through. Now that he was the leader of the Righteous Alliance, he naturally bore the responsibility of being the ruler of the world. Since he has the ability and the confidence, he will rewrite the order and rules of the entire Xiantian domain. Enemies who stand in his way, he kills them one by one, or groups of them. As soon as the thought crossed his mind, Nangong Chen's cultivation level surged, reaching the peak of the Saint realm. He was only one step away from becoming the final Saint King. It should be noted that this was a leap forward in cultivation brought about by Nangong Chen's change of mindset alone, without him doing anything. Not only that, but his comprehension of the major treasure techniques and secret methods he cultivated has also reached a new level. Divine Elephant Suppressing Prison Technique, great perfection. Heavenly Emperor Fist, great perfection. Thunder Emperor's Treasure Technique, great success. The Qilin Treasure Technique has been perfected. Xingzi's Secret, great success. Even a newly learned Duzi's Secret has progressed from beginner to minor mastery. The skill I learned has made a qualitative leap in proficiency. This also means that his strength has increased more than tenfold compared to before. At this moment, he would have the strength to fight, even if he were to truly face an early-stage Saint King. Chapter 561, 3-7 Split. Outside the door, Shura, who was feeling somewhat uneasy, stepped in and immediately felt a powerful aura rushing towards him. A formidable enemy. His pupils contracted involuntarily, and his gaze was fixed on something not far in front of him. However, soon, a young man in white robes, with an otherworldly air and an ethereal demeanor, appeared in his field of vision. That astonishing aura also emanated from the other party. Shura breathed a sigh of relief, but his heart was immediately filled with horror. In just a short while, how did the Crown Prince's strength increase so much? Is this the aptitude of a top-tier prodigy? If the opponent's cultivation level was like a lake before, he could still see through it to some extent, but now is a boundless ocean, unfathomable. Nangong Chen also noticed him, his expression calm. Was someone killed? After saying this, Shura knelt on one knee, his expression full of self-reproach. Forgive my incompetence, he escaped. I searched for several hours without success, so I came back. Upon hearing the result, Nangong Chen showed little emotion, as if it were expected, and simply shook his head. This is not your fault. The other party is a powerful figure from a reclusive family. Their background is not to be underestimated, and they naturally have some trump cards to protect their lives. Should we continue the pursuit? As long as they haven't left the 3 states, there's still hope. Seeing that Shura hesitated to speak, Nangong Chen waved his hand and continued. It's all right, they've escaped, so there's no need to keep chasing them. It's exhausting and draining. Now that the Jun and Z families have been wiped out in the 3 states, the truth will eventually come out. It won't be long before they find out. Sending one person back is just a matter of finding out sooner. Let's wait for them to come, and then we'll prepare a plan. Upon hearing this, Shura stopped talking and nodded. At the same time, the members of Tianyuan Pavilion also completed a brief memorial ceremony and buried the bodies of their deceased clansmen in their homeland. After Ludaju finished everything, his eyes were red, and he walked towards Nangong Chen and the other person. He hadn't forgotten that today's great revenge was all thanks to the other party. Now, as the only surviving eldest son in the family, he naturally has to handle the aftermath. Brother Nangong, thank you so much for saving us today. Without you, I really don't know how I would have saved my father and the others. We've caused you so much trouble. Lu Daju choked up, his legs aching, and then he prepared to kneel down and perform a grand ceremony for Nangong Chen. With a single glance from Nangong Chen, Xiao Luo swiftly caught Lu Daju and stopped him from doing his thing. Under Lu Daju's astonished gaze, Nangong Chen said calmly, You've already called me big brother. How can I sit idly by and do nothing? Besides, you've paid so much protection money. Now that your Tianyuan Pavilion has joined the Righteous Path Alliance, you're giving this crown prince a great deal of face. Both morally and logically, this matter is under my jurisdiction. So, you don't need to feel burdened. From now on, your Tianyuan Pavilion will be moved to the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. I will have someone reserve a piece of land for you in the center of the Divine Dynasty, where it will be safer. Regarding the reconstruction of Tianyuan Pavilion after the disaster, the Divine Dynasty will also do its best to help you. Lu Daju was stunned and didn't react for a long time. He originally thought that, given the current situation of Tianyuan Pavilion, it would be a good thing if the other party didn't kick them out of the Righteous Path Alliance. However, he didn't expect that the other party would be so generous in helping them. This brought tears to his eyes and warmed his heart immensely. However, he was not blinded by the huge profit. After a moment's thought, he forced a smile and refused. Thank you for your kindness, Your Highness. We will never forget your kindness in this lifetime. However, the Tianyuan Pavilion is currently penniless and has nothing. If we were to actually implement what the Crown Prince said, it would likely be extremely costly, and there would inevitably be discussions from the outside world. This would probably be more harmful than beneficial to the Divine Dynasty. Having followed his father in business for so long, Lu Daju could still make sense of this logic. If they really did, as the other party said, wouldn't their Tianyuan Pavilion become nothing more than blatant parasites? The Crown Prince is their benefactor. They would never repay kindness with enmity. Nangong Chen seemed to have anticipated his response and shook his head. You're wrong. People are the foundation. As long as Tianyuan Pavilion has you, it will not be without anything. Also, you don't have to refuse so early. All of what I said above is conditional. Then, he looked into the distance, his eyes deep. The Divine Dynasty is currently in its early stages with a weak foundation. If it wants to develop in the long term, it will naturally need ways to generate wealth. And coincidentally, your Tianyuan Pavilion has become the #1 merchant guild in the world today, so you must have some extraordinary methods. Therefore, You come to Tianyuan Divine Dynasty to develop, and the Divine Dynasty will provide you with convenience. This is a win-win situation. You just need to do your work with peace of mind. As for the profits, we will split them 70/30ths. How about that? Upon hearing this, Lu Deju's pupils dilated slightly. 73 points? This is already a huge profit for Tianbeige, which is currently penniless. You should know that in a normal business partnership, if you don't contribute a single penny, your partner might be lucky to give you a leftover, let alone share any profits with you. This move by the other party could be described as doing charity by giving them money for free. Giving us 30% is too much, Your Highness. We are willing to join the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty and serve it. All we need is a mouthful of food. Not far away, Lu Fugue walked slowly over and said in a deep voice. Clearly, he overheard their conversation. Father, Lu Daju looked at the other person. Lu Fugue ignored him and looked at Nangong Chen with a firm gaze. Even if his own son doesn't understand this principle, doesn't he understand it too? Even if it's a 90-10 split, given the size of their Tianyuan Divine Dynasty, it's still a huge advantage for their Tianbao Pavilion. Moreover, wealth easily attracts envy. The Lu family cannot accept this favor for nothing, no matter what. Under the tense gazes of the two, Nangong Chen simply waved his hand and said softly, "No need to say more, let's split it 30/70ths. After saying that, Lu Fugue and Lu Daju exchanged a glance but didn't say anything more. They knew that if they said something more politely refusing, it might annoy the other party. Since Your Highness has said so, then thank you. After saying that, Lu Fugue, in his wild boar form, stretched out a claw and pressed Lu Daju's head down. The man and the beast actually kowtowed to Nangong Chen. They knew that it was the other person who gave them a new life. I will swear to serve the crown prince to the death. Lu Fugue spoke first, adopting a humble posture and speaking sincerely. Lu Daju also gave a similar answer. Such a grand gesture is unnecessary. Upon seeing this, Nangong Chen's eyes were filled with complex emotions, and his sleeves twitched slightly. The next moment, a gentle force lifted them up. Just as Lu Daju was about to exchange pleasantries, a paw covered in pig bristles struck his back. You unfilial son, hurry up and open the 9th floor. Lu Daju trembled, then looked up at the heavily guarded 9th floor above him, and looked at his father with some disbelief. He understood what his father meant. But the item on the 9th floor is the Lu family's biggest secret. What are you still standing there for? After he finished speaking, Lu Daju belatedly realized what was happening and said to Nangong Chen, Your Highness, this way please. Chapter 562, The Purple Star Chart, The Lu Family's Past. Soon, led by the Lu family father and son, Nangong Chen arrived at the 9th floor of Tianbao Pavilion. Looking at the imposing, seamless, jet-black gate before him, Nangong Chen's eyes revealed a hint of amazement. If he wasn't mistaken, the portal in front of him was constructed entirely of extraterrestrial meteorite iron. Extraterrestrial meteorite iron is the strongest steel, and it comes in 7 colors, with jet black being the most common and ordinary. Although it is considered ordinary, it is extremely rare in the Xiantian domain and worth a fortune. A pound of jet black extraterrestrial meteorite iron would cost 10 million spirit stones. Moreover, they are often available but unsold and are difficult to purchase without special channels. Not to mention other colors of extraterrestrial meteorite iron. If they appeared, they would be scrambled for by the world. However, in the history of the Xiantian domain, the number of times other colors of meteorite iron have appeared can be counted on one hand. Every time, powerful figures would fight over them, causing bloodshed. Even in Tianyuan Prefecture, there is no extraterrestrial meteorite iron of unusual color. But now, at the very center of this portal, a glimmer of blue and purple light intertwined and flickered, incredibly eerie and beautiful. 2 palm-sized pieces of strangely colored meteorite iron. As for the other materials of the portal, they were all jet-black extraterrestrial meteorite iron, like a giant steel dragon, which made people feel awe. Judging from its thickness, it weighed at least 10,000 jin. This means that the money spent on this portal alone, in terms of immortal crystals alone, is already over 1,000 immortal crystals. Nangong Chen had only heard that Tianbao Pavilion was wealthy and powerful, but he did not expect it to be so extravagant. Today he has witnessed it firsthand. As expected of a merchant guild that has been established for tens of thousands of years, its foundation is not to be underestimated. However, the financial losses suffered by the other 8 floors today have indeed dealt a heavy blow to our health. I wonder what kind of treasures are inside this 9th floor that costs so much to build. Nangong Chen pondered to himself, a hint of curiosity gradually appearing in his eyes. Lu Daju stepped forward slightly, stretched out one hand, and placed his broad palm on the 2 strange lights. The next moment, the door seemed to react, and the patterns engraved on it gradually lit up. The door creaked and groaned as it slowly opened. Boom! Until it stops. An ancient aura wafted over, like a ruin that had not been visited for a long time. Your Highness, please come in. Neither Lu nor his son took a step. They were both waiting for Nangong Chen. Nangong Chen nodded slightly, his snow-white sleeves swaying, his silver boots lightly stepping as he entered this world first. The place was neither too big nor too small, but it resembled a secret room. Pale purple candles burned in the four corners of Jin, Sun, Kuan, and Qian, illuminating the entire space brightly. In the center, not far away, there sits a blue stone disc with an 8-petaled lotus pattern. A spiritual energy rises from below, connecting to a gray-yellow blueprint above. The blueprint stood suspended in midair, while protected by a blue barrier, as if it would not corrode even after tens of thousands of years. The blueprints were gathered up, obscuring their original appearance. Only a corner of the pattern could be vaguely seen, with stars scattered throughout, as if nurturing an endless path. Upon seeing this, Nangong Chen's heart trembled slightly. Before Nangong Chen could voice his doubts, Lu's father slowly stepped forward, his face filled with anticipation and respect, and looked at the blueprint, explaining, "This is a treasure that my Lu family's ancestor obtained by chance in the Upper Realm, called the Ziwei Star Chart. It is said to be one of the 10 great secrets of the Upper Realm, the last of the 3 diagrams of the azure sky, incredibly mysterious, and passed down to my Lu family for tens of thousands of years." Nangong Chen's eyes flickered, and he was momentarily stunned. The purple star chart? One of the 10 great secrets of the Upper Realm? The 3 maps of the azure sky? The concept suddenly poured out of him, shocked his mind, leaving him somewhat confused. Although I don't understand, judging for what the other party said, this must be an extraordinary item, made by their grandmaster, with such a long history. Lu Dezhu, standing to the side, also looked somewhat shocked and confused. His father hadn't explained this much to him before, only saying it was something passed down from his master. "May I ask, Senior, what are the 10 great secrets of the Upper Realm? What are the 3 diagrams of the azure sky? And what are the effects of this purple star diagram?" Nangong Chen spoke frankly, expressing all his doubts. After all, the other party had brought him here, so there was no question of avoiding or being taboo about what he should or shouldn't eat. As if he had been waiting for this question, Lu's father smiled and said, "Do you know which 9 heavens and 10 domains are referred to in the 9 heavens and 10 domains?" Nangong Chen shook his head slightly and replied, "According to records from the old era, after that earth-shattering battle, the 9 heavens of the immortal ancient continent were reborn and transformed, and the 10 domains were also reborn. Of the 9 heavens, the only one I know of is the Mingxian heaven, to which the 3,000 Dao states migrated in later generations. As for the other 8 heavens, there are the Haotian heaven, the Zhutian heaven. As for the 10 domains, they are the profound heaven domain, the divine domain, the demon domain, the Buddhist domain." He finished speaking. A strange light flashed in Lu's father's eyes, and he gave him a slightly admiring look. Ordinary people, without a profound understanding, cannot comprehend these things, let alone answer them so fluently. This also indicates that the forces behind the other party are far more mysterious than he imagined. "You're right." Father Lu nodded slightly and continued. "The upper realm we speak of refers to the 9 heavens. The so-called 10 great secrets of the upper realm refer to the 10 great secrets of the 9 heavens. These 10 secrets are not secrets at all. They're common knowledge in the upper realm. Each secret corresponds to a heaven-defying opportunity, which can usually allow people to defy fate and even ascend to the heavens in one step. These opportunities are usually hidden in the ruins of caves, the outer realms, and the small worlds within the rifts in the starry sky. Just like the Ziwei star chart left by my Lu family's ancestor, it is an important key to opening and awakening the Ziwei star realm. Only with this key can people enter it and obtain opportunities." Chapter 563, The Immortal Clan Jin Family, Nangong Chen's Promise. The reason they are called the 10 Great Secrets is that in the past, these 10 great grotto heavens and those small worlds were scattered throughout the 9 realms. But from some unknown point in time, these grotto heavens disappeared one after another, and gradually, people began to call them the 10 Great Secrets. Later, people discovered that these 10 secrets did not seem to have disappeared, but only certain special objects could awaken and bring them to light. These secrets would hide over time, and their positions would constantly change with the turbulent flow of time. According to my ancestor's notes, in his era, only 2 of the 10 great secrets were awakened, and they disappeared one after another in later generations. But even those 2 great secrets allowed the cultivators of that era to reap huge benefits. Later, these 10 secrets seemed to vanish without a trace, and no one could summon them again. Countless powerful forces tried to find even a clue, even spending huge sums of money, but all to no avail. The reason they want to get clues is to get there first, and take the lion's share. You know, there's only so much in the secret realm. The first ones to arrive will get the meat, while the later ones will be lucky to get even a bowl of soup. What those powerful forces don't know is that my ancestor possesses a secret key. As he said this, Lu Fugue looked incredibly proud. However, he quickly noticed Nangong Chen's hesitant expression and understood what the other wanted to say, so he smiled and said, "Are you wondering why my ancestor didn't use the Z-Way star chart to awaken himself? Why didn't he keep this resource for himself, but instead left it to us, his descendants?" Seeing that he remained silent, Lu Fugue guessed what he was thinking, gradually suppressed his smile, and said in a deep voice, "That's because the upper realm is a cannibalistic world. My ancestor and 2 other cultivators obtained this item together in the secret realm, but they were ambushed and killed by the 2 at the exit. My ancestor killed one of them, but was seriously injured. He was chased down to the lower realm by the other, and then handed this item to my ancestor and the others before closing his eyes and passing away. Before our ancestor passed away, he instructed us, the descendants of the Lu family, never to enter the upper realm. The person who chased after our ancestor back then is still alive. He is a disciple of the Jin family, an immortal clan in the upper realm. The Jin family is such a behemoth that they must have known about the emergence of the Z-Way star chart long ago. Over the years, they have been searching for news of my Lu family, but fortunately, my Lu family is located in the lower realm, and they cannot reach that far, which is why we escaped this calamity. Your Highness, you are an exceptional individual, and you are sure to achieve great things in the upper realm in the future. It would be best to entrust this item to you. However, I still have to advise you. Unless you're absolutely certain, do not spread this news, otherwise you will surely invite the Jin family to kill you." The words were spoken. Nangong Chen nodded slightly, a look of realization flashing across his eyes, finally understanding the story between the Z-Way star chart and the Lu family. He looked at the gray-yellow blueprint high above the sky and thought to himself, "I never expected this thing to have such a great background." It turned out to be one of the 10 hidden keys, corresponding to a tremendous opportunity. Seeing him look over, Lu's father pondered for a moment and continued, "As for the 3 maps of the sky that you just asked about, I will explain them to you as well. The ancestors' notes don't record much, only that it is composed of 3 diagrams of the celestial sphere, namely the celestial diagram, the heavenly diagram, and the star diagram. It is said that when the 3 diagrams are combined, there will be earth-shattering effects. As for their origin, it doesn't say much either. My Lu family Z-Way star chart is one of them." Then he laughed and said, "To obtain one of the 3 maps of the azure sky is already a sign of great fortune. The other 2 maps are equally extraordinary. To obtain and combine them requires immense blessings and the favor of heaven, which is extremely difficult." The implication was that Nangong Chen shouldn't be too ambitious. Managing a star map was enough. But that's not what Nangong Chen was thinking at the moment. He looked up at the star map for a while, and then recalled the celestial map he had obtained in the sacred astronomical site that day, and his mind was shaken. Could it be such a coincidence? Seeing that he remained silent, Lu's father assumed that he had taken the advice to heart, so he gave Lu Daju a look, signaling him to take down the Z-Way star chart. Lu Daju stepped forward and respectfully kowtowed 3 times to the stone slab, performing a sacrificial ceremony, before carefully taking the bundle of Z-Way star charts and bringing it to the 2 of them. "Your Highness, please accept it," Mr. Lu said respectfully, his eyes filled with complex emotions, a mixture of reluctance and relief. He knew that this object was a treasure hidden away in their hands, and they would have to live in constant fear. "I believe that it will definitely be able to play a corresponding role in the hands of the other party." Nangong Chen took a deep breath, knowing the value of this item, and asked, "Senior, this is something left behind by your ancestor. Are you sure you want to entrust it to me? This is an opportunity that could lead to immortality." Father Lu shook his head and said sincerely, "Although it was left by the ancestor, now that the great era is coming, you know my son. He has ordinary talent and no desire to compete. He is destined not to be able to bring out the brilliance of this thing. It would be better to form a good relationship with the crown prince. Only in the hands of a prodigy like you can it play its due role." He was afraid of putting pressure on the other party, so he did not mention avenging their Lu family ancestor, because the Jin family of the immortal clan was truly at the height of its power in the upper realm, a behemoth whose accumulated foundation was far beyond the reach of any genius from the lower realm. Upon hearing this, Nangong Chen didn't say much, took it, bowed slightly to the ancestral tablet of the Liu family at the back of the secret chamber, and said, Junior Nangong Chen will definitely visit the Jin family of the Immortal Clan in the future to seek justice for the Liu family's ancestor and repay the kindness of receiving the treasure today. Liu's father's eyes welled up with tears. He had gambled on the other's character and murmured, Good boy. Liu Daju was also a little excited. He had watched the other party grow up to where he was today and knew his talent. Perhaps in the future, he would really have a chance to avenge his ancestor. When that time comes, he will have brought honor to his ancestors and have the face to face them. It was late at night. After bidding farewell to the Liu family, Nangong Chen, along with Xiao Luo and Xiao Qi, one human and one beast, set off back to the Divine Dynasty. Before leaving, Liu Dezhu told Nangong Chen that they would need to handle the aftermath, and it would take at least a month before they could move to Xinqiao. Nangong Chen didn't say much about it, only telling them to take care and declining the invitation to stay. He has more important things to do. Now that he has reached the peak of sainthood, he must begin preparing to break through to Saint King. With the retaliation from the reclusive families and the Immortal Ascension Conference just a month away, every bit of strength he gains gives him more confidence. He must seize every second. Chapter 564, The Hidden Foundation of a Reclusive Family. A few days later, the Liu family watched them leave until the white jade carriage completely disappeared into the night. Only then did Liu's father withdraw his gaze and let out a long sigh. Alas, what a pity. We let a big fish escape back to the Jun family. Who knows when their wrath will come? Liu Dezhu pursed his lips, knowing who the other party was referring to, and whispered, Father, with the current strength of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty, do we still need to fear those hidden families? According to the information they had, the Heavenly Abyss Divine Dynasty had exposed 4 Saint Kings in the last battle against the Blood God Sect in Chu City. Now, with the addition of the Crimson Flood Dragon that is about to transform into a dragon, there are already 5 Saint King-level powerhouses guarding the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. These are 5 Saint Kings. In this era of restricted rules and spiritual deprivation, they are already considered extremely terrifying. They can be described as overlords at the level of overlords, without exaggeration. Even the strongest member of the Liu family today is only a saint. Under such circumstances, is it possible that the Heavenly Abyss Divine Dynasty cannot even contend with that reclusive family? Mr. Liu shook his head, as if recalling something. His throat was somewhat dry, and he said in a low voice, That's not quite right. You know the strength that the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty has displayed today, but do you know the strength of those hidden families? How many saints and saint kings do they have? Seeing his silence, Liu's father continued, The hidden families have deep ties with the aristocratic families of the upper realm. According to the ancients, they were sent down to the lower realm to monitor us. They should not be underestimated. You're still young, so you might not know, but according to my ancestors, when the reclusive Jun family first brought their prodigy into the 3 states, they were accompanied by 5 Saint Kings. This is a secret, and very few people in the Xiantian domain know about it. These words were like a depth charge, landing in Liu Daju's mind. His expression changed drastically, and it took him a long time to calm down. Father, is this true? Liu Dezhu still looked at him with some disbelief. Why would I lie to you? Father Liu smiled helplessly and said, However, that was only the case that time. After that, the hidden families found that the experts in the 3 states were weak and not enough to pose a threat to them, so they gradually reduced the number of protectors. To this day, there is only 1 Saint King following them. So, it seems that Brother Nangong and his group were able to so easily annihilate the Jun family this time because they had the advantage of favorable timing, location, and popular support. Liu Dezhu said thoughtfully, his eyes growing increasingly horrified. If the Jun family really had 5 Saint Kings descending this time, he didn't even dare to imagine whether things would have gone as smoothly as they had today. So the hidden strength of these clans is truly terrifying. Can the Crown Prince and his allies truly withstand their revenge? Liu Dezhu muttered a few words, his big face gradually turning pale. He knew very well that the life and death of his family were now in the hands of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. If the Divine Dynasty perished, they perished, If the divine dynasty lived, they lived. Seeing his son so frightened, Mr. Liu shook his head and comforted him. You don't need to worry too much. That was in the last era. It's possible that the hidden families had just descended to the mortal realm and were at their peak, which is why they could easily send out 5 Saint Kings to protect them. The spiritual energy in the Tian domain is far less abundant than that in the upper realm. The lifespan of a Saint King is only 20,000 years. Those ancient beings are probably already dead from old age. Liu Dezhu nodded, his expression softening somewhat, and said, That's right. It's possible that it was just the Jun family's first time descending to the lower realm. They weren't sure about the strength of the 3 states, so they mobilized all the powerful members of the clan to gather 5 Saint Kings. From this perspective, judging solely from paper strength, the divine dynasty still possesses the power to fight. Father Liu also agreed with this statement and said with a slightly profound tone, As far as I know, the reclusive families are divided into the Jun family and the Z family. These 2 families are in a competitive relationship. If the Jun family wants to launch a full-scale attack, it will have to take the Z family into consideration, unless the Z family also seeks revenge. But no one from the Z family has died in the 3 states, and the Z family wouldn't provoke the crown prince for no reason, especially given the example of the Jun family. So this possibility is extremely slim. Thank goodness. If the Jun family and the Z family, the 2 oldest families in the Tian domain, had joined forces, it would have been a real problem. He shook his head. As soon as he finished speaking, Liu Dazhu's expression suddenly became interesting. He raised his finger and pointed to the sky in the distance, which was the Tian ranking. Father, have you noticed that the names of the Z family's previously listed prodigies have all disappeared? Today I seem to have heard Jun Wushuang ask the crown prince on his deathbed whether the Z family members were killed by the crown prince, and the crown prince seemed to say that he killed them. As he spoke, his voice trembled more and more. What? Liu's father's expression changed drastically, and his hair stood on end. A few days later, Chongqing Pass and Jianmen Pass are no longer as bustling as before and are quite quiet. Many forces have left one after another, leaving only a few scattered cultivators to do the final cleanup work. They wanted to count how many people in the clan had died and how many were still alive. My son, on the battlefield outside the city, a middle-aged cultivator draped in white cloth wept uncontrollably, holding yellow earth in his hands, picking out the broken bones and fragments and placing them in a jar. The demon race deserves to die. There is also a boy whose family was destroyed and who is now the only one left in his family of 5. He sat calmly on the ground, his fists clenched, with 2 deep tear tracks on his face. Despite his young age, his eyes were surprisingly fierce, but upon closer inspection, one could detect a hint of confusion. Such scenes were commonplace in both trials. In this battle against the demon race, the human race suffered heavy losses. In the void, an old Taoist priest from the Heavenly Mystery Pavilion silently watched this scene, holding a brush and writing these words on the silk scroll, radiating spiritual light in front of him. In the 9th era of the 3 continents calendar, the 2 demon kings revived, leading 3 demon legions of tens of millions of soldiers, as well as dozens of ancient remnants, to invade the human race. They intended to attack the divine continent from 2 directions, the wilderness and the broken sky rift valley. The 8 great families of the wilderness and Yellow Wind were the first to perish, but unlike them, when the wilderness was in danger, Crown Prince Tianyuan and his mount, the Crimson Dragon, together fought their way through millions of demon soldiers. Crown Prince Tianyuan even killed Little Demon Queen, one of the leaders of the demon race, which greatly boosted the morale of the human race and foreshadowed the subsequent defeat of the demon race. Upon learning the news, the Little Demon King was enraged and immediately decided to head straight for the second pass of the human race and seize the lifeline of the Central Plains. He led a 10 million demon beast army to attack Chongqing Pass, while simultaneously ordering another army to attack Jianmen Pass. Although the human race was prepared, there was still no match for the demon beasts, suffering heavy casualties. The invincibility of the little demon king and the discipline of the demon army were etched into people's hearts, penetrating to the core and instilling despair. At the critical moment of life and death, within the Changshan Pass, Crown Prince Tianyuan descended to save the great Xia from collapse. He first slew the little demon king, then unleashed his magical treasures. Imperial aura filled the sky, and puppets resembling the little demon queen appeared to aid the human race. The situation has reversed. The demon race has been defeated, and the demon army is almost wiped out. At the critical moment, a black-robed figure among the demons, surrounded by a powerful yet unknown aura, has laid down a spirit-suppressing array, intending to ambush and kill Crown Prince Tianyuan. The remaining humans were shocked, but powerless to do anything about it. They could only watch helplessly. But unexpectedly, Crown Prince Tianyuan won. At the same time, in Jinmen Pass on the other side, powerful figures from the Divine Dynasty descended to provide assistance, leading a million-strong Tianyuan army and flying bow prodigies. The situation was instantly reversed, and the demon race suffered a crushing defeat. Among them was a woman named Gu Mingling, who excelled on the battlefield. She was a princess of the Divine Dynasty and the younger sister of the Crown Prince of Tianyuan. Soon, with the strong support of the Divine Dynasty, the two passes turned the tide and won a great victory, leaving very few monsters behind. Although the three states were victorious, the losses were also heavy. This battle can be considered the most intense and devastating one in several eras of human history. According to statistics, more than 9.1 million cultivators perished in Changshan Pass, including 11 quasi-saints and 52 god-kings. In Jinmen Pass, more than 9.3 million cultivators perished, including 15 quasi-saints and 46 god-kings. The total number of dead and wounded was more than 18.4 million. Thus, the invasion of the demon race, which had lasted for several eras, officially came to an end, ending in a victory for the human race. The old Taoist priest finished his last stroke, letting out a long sigh of relief, his eyes filled with complex emotions. This period of history is both incredibly heroic, featuring the Crown Prince of Tianyuan and the staggering number of human casualties, is so fantastical. It's like a novel or storybook. Chapter 565, After the War, Reign. The central and northern regions of China have been unusually quiet during this period. A few days after that battle, a rain fell that lasted for a long time, and the cities seemed to be draped in a layer of silver gauze, and the world grew colder. Perhaps heaven took pity on the many lives lost in this battle, for the rain carried a rich spiritual energy. One funeral wagon after another slowly drove through the streets, followed by people draped in white mourning clothes. The raindrops easily pelted them, soaking their clothes, but they seemed oblivious to the cold. Even so, they showed no inclination to use any rain avoidance techniques. The glistening liquid flowing down their faces was indistinguishable for a moment from rainwater or tears. Although the human race won this battle, the surviving cultivators were not happy, as too many of them had died. According to statistics compiled by the Tianji Pavilion using magical artifacts, over 9 million people died in Changshan Pass, leaving only over 900,000 cultivators. The situation was slightly better in Jinmen Pass, where only about 1 million cultivators remain alive. In other words, in this war of the demon invasion, the human race lost a total of more than 18 million cultivators. These are all top-tier cultivators nurtured by the human race over countless days and nights. They are core figures or pillars of many forces and families, having expended countless resources and efforts along the way. To perish in these two passes without even leaving behind a skeleton is nothing short of a fatal blow to the human race. It would probably take thousands or tens of thousands of years to return to the former glory of the human race. The only good news is that most of the ferocious beasts in the far west have died out, greatly reducing the danger level. In recent days, quite a few weak but bold cultivators have been rushing to the Broken Sky Rift Valley, hoping to be the first to seize those rare treasures. Unfortunately, the cultivators who ventured into the far west discovered that most of the spiritual herbs and medicines have been uprooted and taken away by the ferocious beasts, leaving only some less valuable resources. Of course, this also made a small number of people rich and happy. This nearly cartload of medicinal herbs, we've really struck it rich. At the entrance to the Broken Sky Rift Valley, a middle-aged cultivator carefully counted the storage ring in his hand, a smile involuntarily creeping onto his lips. However, he quickly wiped the smile off his face. His narrow, elongated eyes glanced around, and seeing no one was there, he muttered something under his breath, a hint of dissatisfaction in his voice. However, in terms of who gained the most from this battle, It should belong to the divine dynasty. It's just a pity that we, who are nothing but grass, can't even get a bite of the scraps. In the war against the demon race, the Tianyuan divine dynasty reaped the most benefits, which is a consensus. They took away almost all the corpses of powerful ferocious beasts or valuable parts of certain demon beasts. Only some unremarkable beast carcasses remained, which were then divided up by the remaining major powers. The rogue cultivators couldn't even find a scrap, so they inevitably harbored some resentment. However, this only applies to a small portion of cultivators. Most people are still grateful to the divine dynasty. After all, without the aid of the divine dynasty, it was uncertain whether they would have survived. Meanwhile, in the Tianyuan divine dynasty, far to the east, the scene was quite different. A light drizzle was falling over the city, weather that would normally be unsuitable for going out. But today the streets were packed with cultivators and commoners, forming a long line, their eyes burning as they gazed ahead, and excited voices rang out continuously. I never imagined that we would receive 10 caddies of ferocious beast meat for free today. It's like our ancestors' graves are emitting auspicious smoke. Yes, and what's more, this isn't just any ordinary ferocious beast meat. Let me tell you a secret. My cousin is an official in the court, and according to him, this batch of ferocious beast meat all comes from the Purple Mansion realm, and it's incredibly fresh. It was only killed recently. Yes, I thought the Divine Dynasty would give us ferocious beast meat from Chi, Refining, and Foundation Establishment stage beasts, but I didn't expect it to be from Purple Mansion stage beasts, and it's incredibly fresh. My God, 10 caddies of this would be worth at least 100,000 spirit stones on the market. You underestimated it. You forgot, this is a ferocious beast from the far west, extremely rare. It's worth at least 20 to 30% more than a normal ferocious beast, so 130,000 spirit stones is more like it. 130,000 spirit stones. Even if I keep that, it will take at least 100 years to earn the reward. May I ask you fellow Taoists, I have just emerged from seclusion and have some doubts. Where did the Divine Dynasty obtain so much demon beast meat? Did they perhaps wipe out all the ferocious beasts from the far west in one fell swoop? Listening to their conversation, a young man in black with an extraordinary aura spoke up, cupping his hands in greeting. The boy's tone was relatively gentle and polite, and many cultivators immediately took notice and were willing to answer his questions. However, when they saw the boy's face, they were startled and quickly said, "You are Qing Fan, who is ranked 10th on the Xian Tian ranking." When Qing Fan saw that someone recognized him, he did not deny it and nodded with a smile. Seeing this, the cultivators present quickly changed their expressions, hurriedly cupped their hands in response, and said with slight respect, "My lord, you are unaware of what has happened. A few days ago, the little demon king launched an attack, leading an army of 20 million ferocious beasts, intending to conquer Central Divine Continent. At the critical moment, the Crown Prince and others went to the rescue, which enabled them to annihilate the demon army and save Central Divine Continent. The beast meat that the Divine Dynasty is currently distributing comes from those 20 million beasts." After he finished speaking, the cultivator glanced at him cautiously, pondering to himself. Throughout the entire Divine Dynasty, the other party's reputation is not small. He is one of the top 10 prodigies on the Xian Tian ranking, and the only one whose background is not so powerful. He is known as a prodigy from a humble background. According to others, although the other party came from an ordinary family, he worked incredibly hard and climbed step by step from an outer disciple to a core disciple in Tianyuan Academy. He was a complete cultivation fanatic, so it's no wonder that he didn't know what happened some time ago. "I see." Qing Fan nodded slightly, a hint of shock in his eyes. He looked at the cultivator who had just spoken and asked with a touch of nervousness, "What are the casualties of the Divine Dynasty? And who killed that little demon king? Was it the Holy King of the Divine Dynasty?" Before he came out of seclusion, he had heard of the little demon king's reputation. He was a saintly genius from the old era, a pure-blooded being, and his strength was terrifying. He felt that even the older generation of sages were no match for the other party. "I'm afraid that within the Divine Dynasty, only a saint king-like being could kill that little demon king." The cultivator smiled and answered one by one. Most of those from the Divine Dynasty who went survived. The casualty ratio was quite small. As for who killed the little demon king, it wasn't the holy king of the court, but the crown prince. Qing Fan's pupils contracted slightly as he heard this all-too-familiar name. After a dozen or so breaths, he calmed down and expressed his gratitude. He felt a pang of bitterness in his heart, thinking to himself, "The crown prince is indeed the crown prince, a true genius. His progress is so rapid that we can only look up to him." He thought his cultivation speed was very fast, but compared to the other party, it was like heaven and earth. "I wonder if my elder sister's wish in this life will ever be fulfilled." Involuntarily, The lonely figure of that woman standing alone in the courtyard appeared in Qingfan's mind, and he paused for a few breaths. He quickly clenched his fist and thought to himself, "My sister has worked hard for me all her life. No matter what, I must do my best for her." Fortunately, I met a sage of alchemy from the academy in the secret realm some time ago. After this, I will have my elder sister try to become his disciple. It turns out that after the siblings' last pilgrimage to the palace, they refused all the privileges offered to them by King Tianyuan and chose to start over. After all, the crown prince's decision to let them join the divine dynasty was already a great favor, and they were well aware that they could not take up any more resources for no reason. Of course, Qingfan's current achievements have also verified what he said that day. Even without special privileges, he was still able to rise from the grassroots and become a core genius in the academy. The distribution of monster meat continued, and the long, crowded queues grew shorter and shorter, with cheers occasionally audible from each household. Some cultivators were excited to receive the meat of a ferocious beast, hoping to use it to further their cultivation. There were also ordinary people who rejoiced that their offspring could grow up better. Even though the sky was overcast and it was raining, it seemed unable to extinguish the people of the divine dynasty's yearning for the future. Chapter 566, Do you still want to spar with me today? The cultivator smiled and answered one by one. Most of those from the divine dynasty who went survived. The casualty ratio was quite small. As for who killed the little demon king, it wasn't the holy king of the court, but the crown prince. Qingfan's pupils contracted slightly as he heard this all-too-familiar name. After a dozen or so breaths, he calmed down and expressed his gratitude. He felt a pang of bitterness in his heart, thinking to himself, "The crown prince is indeed the crown prince, a true genius. His progress is so rapid that we can only look up to him." He thought his cultivation speed was very fast, but compared to the other party, it was like heaven and earth. I wonder if my elder sister's wish in this life will ever be fulfilled. Involuntarily, the lonely figure of that woman standing alone in the courtyard appeared in Qingfan's mind, and he paused for a few breaths. He quickly clenched his fist and thought to himself, "My sister has worked hard for me all her life. No matter what, I must do my best for her." Fortunately, I met a sage of alchemy from the academy in the secret realm some time ago. After this, I will have my elder sister try to become his disciple. It turns out that after the siblings' last pilgrimage to the palace, they refused all the privileges offered to them by King Tianyuan and chose to start over. After all, the crown prince's decision to let them join the divine dynasty was already a great favor, and they were well aware that they could not take up any more resources for no reason. Of course, Qingfan's current achievements have also verified what he said that day. Even without special privileges, he was still able to rise from the grassroots and become a core genius in the academy. The distribution of monster meat continued, and the long, crowded queues grew shorter and shorter, with cheers occasionally audible from each household. Some cultivators were excited to receive the meat of a ferocious beast, hoping to use it to further their cultivation. There were also ordinary people who rejoiced that their offspring could grow up better. Even though the sky was overcast and it was raining, it seemed unable to extinguish the flames in the hearts of the people of the divine dynasty. At the highest point of the palace stands a courtyard atop the Dragon Vein Mountain. The view from here is superb, with thousands of lights shining below. A gentle glance is all it takes to take in the entire cityscape of the capital. A drop of silvery, crystalline liquid fell. Nangong Chen's eyes flickered, and he realized that his palms were a little damp. His white robe fluttered in the wind and shone brightly in the sunlight. He looked up at the sky, where the dark clouds gradually dispersed, revealing a silvery white belly. Under the light, he could vaguely see specks of drizzle. The spiritual energy here is extremely dense, and occasionally it condenses into water droplets in the air and falls down. He couldn't quite tell whether the droplet in his palm was rain or water droplets. "Brother, the rain has stopped." A gentle and melodious voice sounded from behind. Nangong Chen stopped thinking, casually flicked the water droplets from his palm, and turned slightly around. A beautiful woman dressed in a plain white fairy dress appeared in his field of vision, holding a small and exquisite umbrella. The person who arrived was none other than Gu Mengling. Today, Gu Mengling did not wear the light red phoenix robe she usually wore in the palace. Instead, she wore a more plain color. Even so, it could not hide her exquisite features, making her appear even more lively, radiant, and otherworldly. Yes, the rain has stopped. Nangong Chen wasn't surprised to see the newcomer. A smile played on his lips as he softly greeted them, then looked at Gu Mengling with a slightly teasing tone. "Would you like to spar with me again today?" Sunlight breaking through the clouds shone on half of the boy's profile, making his eyebrows seem to sparkle, which made Gu Mengling somewhat stunned. She looked like a startled rabbit, quickly lowering her head so that her expression was obscured. After a long while, her soft voice could be heard. Well, since the other party returned that day, she often came to ask him questions about cultivation. At first, he would explain the theory, but gradually, it evolved into a sparring session between the two of them. Of course, calling it a friendly competition is less accurate than calling it a one-sided crushing defeat, because she hadn't won a single match against him in recent days, even when he lowered his cultivation level. However, she had no complaints and even enjoyed it immensely, learning a lot from each battle and gaining a great deal. Moreover, she could take this opportunity to get closer to him through the sparring, since she was indeed somewhat unfamiliar with this brother compared to other women in the Divine Dynasty who were on good terms with him. It would be even better if it could strengthen our relationship. Upon hearing this, Nangong Chen nodded slightly, casually summoned a wooden sword, ran his fingers along the blade, and said softly, "I have observed you at the peak of the God King realm for a long time, and you are just one step away from stepping into the Quasi-Saint realm. Your training over these days is almost complete. Today, I will suppress my cultivation to the same level as yours. You will unleash your full strength to fight me, and see if I can help you break through." After speaking, Gu Mingling suppressed her complex emotions, raised her head seriously, and her beautiful, star-like eyes showed a hint of gratitude as she replied, "Mingling thanks your majesty." She put down the wooden umbrella in her hand, then chanted an incantation, summoning a jade sword with a cold, gleaming light and an extraordinary appearance. This is the Jade Spring Sword, a sacred artifact. It was obtained by Nangong Chen from the foundation of the Tianyuan Sect and later placed in the weapon pavilion of the Divine Dynasty, where it was selected by Gu Mingling. In Jianmen Pass, Gu Mingling also became famous in one battle with this sword, and was known as the Jade Spring Sword Immortal. She drew this sword at this moment, clearly indicating that she was going to be serious in the upcoming battle. Gu Mingling took a deep breath, fully aware that this was a rare opportunity in her life to spar with the world's most outstanding talents. Every time she fought, it would be one less chance, so she cherished it immensely. Nangong Chen glanced at the azure, spring-like sword and recognized it. His gaze remained calm, and he said nothing. He entrusted the numerous magical artifacts obtained from these immortal treasures to Nangong Chen, intending for him to distribute them among capable and trustworthy individuals to enhance the Divine Dynasty's combat strength. After all, having so many in his hands would be somewhat wasteful and wouldn't serve any purpose, so it would be better to distribute them. In retrospect, his idea back then was actually quite good. Nangong Chen thought to himself with considerable pride. He wasn't worried about not having enough magical artifacts when he revitalized the Tianyuan Sect in the future. He could just recruit those people. After thinking for a moment, he looked directly at the serious-looking girl in front of him, who was ready, raised the wooden sword in his hand, and said, "Come." Seeing him pull out a wooden sword, Gu Mingling pursed her lips, seemingly deep in thought. Her pretty face was somewhat complicated. After a while, she cautiously said, "Brother, why don't you choose a different sword?" I'm afraid. Chapter 567, The Terror of the Twin Sword's Body, the perfection of sword intent. Although her opponent used a wooden sword during their sparring session a few days ago and even defeated her, it was still just a sparring session, and both sides held back. But now that the other party is demanding that she go all out, she has to use the power within her body, and she knows very well how amazing that power is. Based on the methods she displayed in the past few days alone, we can't stop her. What's more, the other party even suppressed their cultivation level to be at the same level as her. Since awakening her twin sword body, she has been virtually unbeatable. Even Lu Ruyan, the senior sister of the Tianyuan Sword Sect, who possesses the heart of a sword emperor and whose sword intent has now reached its peak, is no match for her. The reason lies in the fact that these twin sword bodies have a unique advantage for sword cultivators. Therefore, she felt that Nangong Chen, who is also at the peak of sword intent, would not be her opponent, especially since he was using a wooden sword. It's not that having mastered sword intent isn't strong. She comes from a heavenly sword holy land, and she understands the difficulty of the path of swordsmanship better than anyone else. She herself has also mastered sword intent. It can be said that even in a holy land where sword cultivators from all over the world gather, it is difficult to find a young person with a mastery of sword intent. But after arriving in the Divine Dynasty, she met two people. One was Lu Ruyan, and the other was her own brother. Gu Mingling admired them from the bottom of her heart, because she had practiced swordsmanship since childhood and was personally taught by the Holy Lord, which enabled her to reach the pinnacle of sword intent. Swordsmanship is extremely demanding in terms of talent. Most sword cultivators spend their entire lives stuck at the beginner stage. To reach the minor mastery of sword intent is already considered genius in the world of swordsmanship. As for mastering sword intent, One is considered an exceptional talent, perhaps only one in 10,000 with such talent. In the Holy Land, there are only a handful of people who have mastered the sword intent, and most of them are elderly elders. As for the three realms above perfection, transformation, and entry into the Tao, speaking of perfection alone, she has only ever seen it in the Holy Lord in her life. Apart from that, she has never seen anyone else possess the sword intent at the perfection level. As for the other two realms, don't even think about it. Those who have reached the highest level are known as sword saints, while those who have entered the Tao are called sword immortals. You hurt me. On the other side, Nangong Chen's lips twitched. How long had it been since he had heard those unfamiliar words? If it weren't for the other person's serious expression, he would have thought it was a joke. Of course, he knew the other person's character well enough to know that he wouldn't make such a joke. He was probably genuinely afraid of hurting him. He then waved his hand and replied, "You can use your skills without worry. I have protective armor under my robes, so even a saint cannot hurt me." Upon hearing this, Gu Mingling said no more, but bowed slightly and cupped her hands, saying softly, "Your Majesty, then I must offend you." A gentle breeze blew by, causing Gu Mingling's black hair to fall loose. Her beautiful eyes gradually became serious, her skirt swayed, and a terrifying sword intent rose up, making her look like a female sword immortal. As soon as she finished speaking, Gu Mingling's figure disappeared from the spot, turning into a blur as she charged towards Nangong Chen, unleashing her full power as a peak god king. The jade spring sword streaked through the air like a silver moon, then burst forth with dazzling red and blue sword light, tearing through the sky and creating 1,000 waves of energy. This sword strike combines two forces, the blazing sun of the Golden Crow and the glacier above the 9 heavens. Ice and fire are inherently opposing elements, yet they are strangely fused together, and the power they contain is simply earth-shattering. Sizzle. The air in front of Nangong Chen gradually distorted, instantly torn in two by this sword intent, with scorching heat and cold rushing straight to his face, a clash of ice and fire. Twin sword body, truly profound. Nangong Chen's double pupil shone with a faint light as he offered a word of praise. Within his sight, he was astonished to see two amazing sword souls intertwined within the opponent's dantian. This sword had nearly 50% of its power, all amplified by him. If it were an ordinary peak-level god king who were to receive this sword strike without any protective treasures, he would most likely be either killed or crippled. Even those who have just entered the quasi-saint realm must be extremely careful and cannot underestimate this sword strike. If they fail to receive it properly, they will suffer a great loss. It can be said that the power of this sword has far exceeded that of a peak god king, fully demonstrating the advantages of the twin sword body. Seeing the red and blue sword light about to fall, Nangong Chen remained calm and unhurried, wielding his wooden sword and producing a clear sword sound. Nangong Chen drew his sword, the wooden sword sweeping out horizontally, colliding with the sword light. An incredibly simple and unadorned sword strike, yet it contains a profound sword intent. Boom! Its immense power poured forth continuously, sweeping across the land like a wave. Fortunately, the Crown Prince's residence had a formation set up. Otherwise, the residual force would have been enough to flatten this mountain. The power dissipated. Nangong Chen staggered back 10 steps, and with a crack, the wooden sword in his hand shattered. He looked at the pieces of wood scattered on the ground and showed a helpless expression. A wooden sword is still a wooden sword. Even if he exerted his strength to the extreme, it could not overcome its inherent fragility. However, to his surprise, Gu Mingling actually had the ability to shatter his wooden sword. This exceeded his expectations. He thought to himself thoughtfully. As for Gu Mingling on the other side, her body trembled as if a huge force had struck her from the sword, and she staggered back 100 steps before stopping. Feeling a dull pain in her tiger's mouth, Gu Mingling's pretty face paled slightly, and her pupils contracted. If she wasn't mistaken, that was perfect level sword intent. Only a sword intent at the perfect level can bring a wooden sword to such a degree, using softness to overcome hardness and achieving oneness between man and sword. But wasn't what the opponent displayed some time ago a fully developed sword intent? How old is my elder brother, the Emperor? Chapter 568, An Unexpected Disaster. As the sky gradually cleared, Chu Yin sat alone in the main hall, pondering the silk scroll in her hand. Morning light streamed through the window, falling on half of the hall in front of us. The blue floor tiles reflected the light, illuminating the stack of books on the table. Chu Yin belatedly realized that she had been thinking about it all night without her noticing. A hint of fatigue appeared on her pretty face as she rubbed her eyes. Since returning from Changsheng Pass, she has been busy with the relocation of her entire clan. At first, she thought that Nangong Chen was just joking that night, But she didn't expect that the next day, the Divine Dynasty would send an envoy to the Chu family to meet with her and fully assist the Chu family in relocating. That's when she realized that the other person was serious. This made Chu Yin so excited that she couldn't sleep all night. After all, who doesn't know that the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty is a hegemonic force in the Xintian domain? With the other party as a backer, we're in the three states, can't we act arrogantly? Moreover, the Eastern Divine Continent is now vastly different from what it used to be. Due to the rule of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty, its development has been unimaginably rapid, and it has already shown signs of surpassing the Central Divine Continent. If the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty does not fall, the Eastern Divine Continent will inevitably become the core hinterland of the entire Xintian domain in the future. Many forces have considered this and are extremely envious, but due to the domineering nature of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty, no one dares to be the first to expand their territory in the Eastern Divine Continent without its permission. Now, the Chu family has obtained such privileges, not only expanding their territory in the Eastern Divine Continent, but also owning a piece of land in the capital city at the core of the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. This should have been a cause for celebration, but when Chu Yin shared the news, she didn't expect it to be met with opposition from a portion of the clan. This group of people are mostly older generations with rigid mindsets. They believe that their families have lived in Chu City for generations and are perfectly fine, so why bother with a large-scale clan relocation? Chu Yin went door to door to persuade them, speaking kindly and gently, but she did not expect to encounter even more fierce resistance from them. They believed that Chu Yin was unfilial and unworthy to be the patriarch of the Chu family, and wanted to persuade their descendants to strip Chu Yin of her position as patriarch. It's inevitable that some clansmen who coveted her position were behind this, fueling the flames. After all, for a woman to become the clan leader was unprecedented in the Chu family. Her jealous cousins were itching to tear her apart and snatch the Chu ancestors' inheritance. Now that this misfortune has befallen their family, it has only fueled their arrogance. If this matter is not handled properly, they will inevitably face gossip from others. There have even been recent rumors that Chu Yin moved the Chu family to the Divine Dynasty for her own selfish reasons in pursuing someone with double pupils. Chu Yin has been quite troubled by this for the past few days, not knowing what to do. She has always been decisive in her actions, but she was stumped on this matter. The main reason is that these older generations in the clan have all made contributions to the clan, and the blood ties within the clan are complex and intertwined, so she can't easily touch them. Chu Yin has never taken those petty people who stir up trouble behind the scenes seriously. Some useless people who only know how to fight among themselves and are weak and incompetent outside the home. Do they even deserve to take her place? Funny, she sent many tribal soldiers to secretly monitor them. If they dare to have even the slightest thought of rebellion, she would kill them without mercy as a warning to others. Chu Yin greets the clan leader. Soon, an aged voice rang out in the hall. Chu Yan's thoughts came to a halt, and as she looked at the bent-over old man in front of her, her expression softened. She stepped forward, quickly helped the other person up, and said softly, "We're all family, Elder Yun. There's no need to be so polite." Before the other party could speak, Chu Yin asked, "Are you still practicing the cultivation method I gave you some time ago?" Her beautiful eyes looked at him with a hint of anticipation. The cultivation method given by the clan leader is truly profound. After only a period of practice, my cultivation, which has remained stagnant for 10,000 years, has actually loosened up a bit, and I have touched upon a trace of the opportunity to become a saint. I have come here today with the intention of asking the clan leader for some time to go into seclusion. I hope the clan leader will grant my request. Upon hearing this, Chu Yun seemed to remember something, and his body trembled slightly as he spoke. Chu Yan's beautiful eyes lit up. The cultivation technique she gave was naturally selected from the Chu ancestors' decree, but she didn't expect the effect to be so obvious. Elder Yun was a powerful figure sent by her maternal family to protect her. He was a quasi-saint. To avoid suspicion, he changed his surname to Chu when she was young and devoted his life to her. Over the years, her opponent's cultivation had been stuck at the peak of quasi-saint, which had made her anxious. Now that she finally had the ability to help him, she was very excited and breathed a sigh of relief. Chu Yin smiled, her bright lips curving upwards, and said, "Of course you can. If you need any resources for a breakthrough, Elder Yun, please don't hesitate to tell me." Since her father went mad, the Chu family has not had a single saint-level warrior. Now that a saint is about to be born, she is naturally very concerned. Moreover, this saint is one of her subordinates. With him, her influence within the clan will undoubtedly increase even further. Chu Yun felt a lump in his throat. He never expected that after living most of his life without children, he would feel kinship from this person. Chu Yin thanks the clan leader and will certainly not let him down. He nodded emphatically, expressing his gratitude, and then continued. I have come here today for another matter to inform the Patriarch. The investigation into the Tianyuan Pavilion that you asked me to investigate has yielded results. Chu Yin nodded, suppressing her joy, and asked, What do you mean? What's the specific situation? Since their parting at Changshan Pass, the major families and forces have been filled with anxiety and dared not even glance at Tianyuan Pavilion, fearing they might suffer an undeserved calamity. Sometime later, they heard that Crown Prince Tianyuan had returned to the Divine Dynasty, and they breathed a sigh of relief. Perhaps it was Tianyuan Pavilion's deliberate blockade. They had sent people to Tianyuan Pavilion to inquire, but they had not been able to obtain the specific details of what happened that day. They could only send their own people to investigate secretly. As it happened, Chu Yun was the person Chu Yin had sent. Chu Yin relayed what Lu Daju had told him to Chu Yin. You mean, apart from one elder who escaped, none of the Jun family members survived? Chu Yin asked incredulously, her beautiful eyes wide as she stared at her boss. Chu Yin nodded slightly. Seeing this, Chu Yan's expression kept changing, her brows furrowed, and she remained silent. Chu Yun, standing to the side, simply said in a deep voice, his gaze solemn. News has also come from the astronomical Holy Land that the Z family has also been wiped out by the Crown Prince. Now that the Jun family has been destroyed, and one person has been released, saving the hidden families time in their search, I'm afraid it won't be long before the wrath of the hidden families will reach the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty. As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Yan's expression grew even more somber, and she asked, When do you think the reclusive family will seek revenge? Chu Yan pondered for a moment before replying. There's only 1 month left until the Immortal Ascension Tournament. Since their successor has died and their cultivation has vanished, they have no hope of competing and will definitely make their move during this period, either as soon as 1 week or as short as 2 weeks. Otherwise, once the envoy from the upper realm arrives in a month, with the Heavenly Abyss Crown Prince at the top of the Shantian ranking, he will surely be chosen by the major sections. By then, it will be too late for their hidden families to seek revenge. I suggest that the Chu family observe the situation for the time being and not rush to relocate to the Divine Dynasty, lest they suffer an undeserved disaster. Upon hearing this, Chu Yan's beautiful eyes turned somewhat bitter, and she said, If that day really comes, it's just a matter of dying sooner or later. Understand. Keep this news to yourself, and do not tell the rest of the clan. Tianyuan Pavilion must have considered this reason for keeping this news under wraps. Yes. Chu Yan respectfully responded, and then withdrew. Chapter 569 still can't do it. The mountain scenery was desolate, and outside the Crown Prince's palace, the battle between the two continued. Within that ball of light and shadow in the void, fist light, thunder magic, and sword light clashed and collided, causing the sky and earth to tremble. After Nangong Chenmu's sword broke, he switched to other methods of killing, each move a powerful and overwhelming display of his unique skills, giving his younger sister, the Imperial Sister, no chance to breathe. Boom! Another merciless punch came crashing down, and Gu Mingling instinctively raised her sword to block, her teeth clenched. The next moment, as the jade spring sword trembled and rang out, the pure white figure flew backward like a meteor, crashing straight into the distant mountain peak. Fortunately, with the power of 2 sword souls within her body, Gu Mingling was not in such a sorry state. She forcefully plunged her sword into the rock, creating sparks and lightning, before she was able to stand firm. Call. Taking advantage of this brief respite, Gu Mingling breathed heavily, her snow-white breasts rising and falling. She was covered in fragrant sweat, with beads of sweat the size of raindrops rolling down her delicate, fair skin and soaking her white dress. Her brows furrowed, and a sense of helplessness welled up within her. She had thought that she would have some advantage after the opponent's weapon broke. But to his surprise, even without weapons, the opponent was still able to crush him completely. Whether in speed, strength, or even individual moves, she was no match for him. This was the first time she had ever felt such a sense of defeat among the most outstanding talents of her generation. Royal sister, is that all? Your brother hasn't had his fill yet. In the distance, Nangong Chen stood in the void, his eyes deep and mysterious, and chuckled softly. In his double pupils, one could clearly see that the potential of the 2 sword souls within Gu Mingling's body had not yet been fully exploited and needed further stimulation. As soon as she finished speaking, Gu Mingling trembled as if she had been struck by lightning, and silently clenched the jade spring sword in her hand. She knew the other person was trying to provoke her in a well-intentioned way, but she was still very upset inside. She cultivated for the sake of the sacred land from a young age, becoming a genius in the eyes of the world. But only she knew that her purpose in cultivating was to one day find out about her origins. But on the day Mo Han came to visit, she learned about her true identity, and her long-held beliefs quietly crumbled. Her parents were dead, and it was her elder brother who avenged them by recognizing her as his sworn sister, making her a revered princess of the divine dynasty. Even the king of Tianyuan treated her as his own daughter, allowing her to enjoy an unprecedented life. She knew that all of this was thanks to her brother's sacrifice. Without him, she might have died at the hands of her enemies long ago. Her brother gave her a new life, and, after coming to the divine dynasty, she should live for her brother. Her belief also shifted to wanting to keep up with the other person's pace, share their burdens, and gain their approval. But now the gap between her and her brother is widening, and she was numb to it until today. When she suddenly woke up, she felt like she was getting further and further away from him. What she had done was far from enough. She could no longer even see his back anymore. In an instant, an unknown anxiety overwhelmed her soul like stagnant water, choking her and suffocating her, as if invisible tentacles were pulling her into an abyss. She can't go on like this. She can't go on like this. Gu Mingling broke free from the stagnant water, her eyes gradually regaining their clarity. The two sword souls in her dantian began to glow, and a terrifying sword aura slowly rose. Her aura surged continuously until it reached the peak of the God King realm. Behind her emerged two enormous sword shadows, one red and one blue, their astonishing sword energy seemingly capable of tearing the void apart. This is Gu Mingling's Dharma form, the twin swords. This is finally getting interesting. Nangong Chen stood on the sky, watching silently, a playful smile on his lips. The sheer power of the sword energy made his eyes feel uncomfortable just by looking at it. Gu Mingling drew her sword. The two-colored sword light tore through time. This sword was so fast that even time itself couldn't catch up with it, and it went straight for Nangong Chen. The sword's power was so intense that it split the clouds in the sky in two, revealing a patch of azure. Nangong Chen felt his entire aura locked down, unable to move or escape, and even sensed a trace of rule within it. Good. After carefully examining it, Nangong Chen nodded slightly, his eyes lighting up and his tone filled with admiration. If they were at the same level, the power of this sword strike would actually have a chance to injure him. Within his mind, the 100 Refinements divine scripture was frantically analyzing this sword strike, emitting a sound that only he could hear. If the twin sword intents are suppressed by sword intent of a higher rule, the danger can be averted. Upon hearing this, Nangong released a wisp of ethereal energy from his fingertips. The yin and yang energies blended sharply, and a single glance was enough to make one's soul tremble. It was none other than the Samsara sword intent. He used his fingers as a sword and unleashed a sword strike. The ethereal sword light gradually expanded, like an extremely surging wave, crashing against the river of time and reflecting the cycle of reincarnation. Three distinct beams of light collided in the void, unleashing an indescribable pressure, like the collision of giant stars. After a few breaths, Gu Mingling's eyes gradually dimmed, and she said softly, "Still can't do it?" The sword beams collided, resulting in a draw, and then vanished completely into the air. Her most prized strike was no match for the opponent's casual swordplay. Nangong Chen arrived, stepping through the void, his snow-white robes fluttering, spotless, not even a trace of sword energy touching his clothes. "Brother, I've lost." Gu Mingling looked up, not daring to meet Nangong Chen's eyes, and said with a hint of shame, if it were just a loss, she wouldn't be so upset. The key issue is that she didn't even touch the hem of the other person's clothes. It can be described as a complete and utter defeat. She felt that she had let down the other party's guidance over the past few days. The other person must be very disappointed in me. They might even think that they shouldn't have brought her into their home in the first place. Gu Mingling felt increasingly guilty as she thought about it, clenching the hem of her clothes, her palms sweating involuntarily. Unexpectedly, a warm and strong hand covered her dark hair. Gu Mingling froze as if struck by lightning, staring blankly at the boy's gentle, smiling eyes. Chapter 570, Guiding Gu Mingling, the Unparalleled Sword Manual. Who wins or loses in a sparring match isn't important. What matters is what you gain from the process. Nangong Chen said softly, gently stroking her hair. I observe that the two sword souls within you are already showing signs of merging and generating light. This is a good thing, as your physique is naturally oriented towards this path. Now that you have made such a start, your path will become increasingly easier. That's already very good, Mingling. I've seen all your hard work these past few days. Gu Mingling was, after all, just a young girl, and her eyes welled up with tears when she heard Nangong Chen's words. She hadn't expected that the other person wouldn't blame her, but would instead comfort her like this. That's right. How could someone as noble as my brother blame her for such a trivial matter? Having figured it out, Gu Mingling felt a surge of joy and was deeply moved, saying, Mingling has learned a lot. Your Majesty is absolutely right. Nangong Chen nodded slightly in response and continued to instruct. Your cultivation has now reached the pinnacle of the God King realm, and you can begin preparing to break through to Quasi-Saint. During this time, you can go to the backyard of the Imperial Palace. I will ask the Divine Dynasty for an opportunity to enter the heart-refining pool. Go boldly. It will greatly help your breakthrough to Quasi-Saint. As for why the heart-refining pool is located in the backyard of the Imperial Palace, it is thanks to the Lan and Yu families who moved it to the Divine Dynasty in the past and brought the heart-refining pool with them, which provided great convenience to the Divine Dynasty. However, the water of the heart-refining pool is difficult to replicate. The two families went to great lengths to use a secret method to transform a spiritual spring. The spring water transforms once every 10 years and takes 100 years to become the water of the heart-refining pool. It can be said to be extremely precious. Therefore, the water volume in the heart-refining pool is not as much as imagined. Each use reduces the pool's capacity, but giving up a spot for their princess to use for a breakthrough is still not a problem. Nangong Chen thought to himself silently. Gu Mingling's throat trembled slightly. She knew how precious the heart-refining pool was. A few years ago, it would have been impossible for a god king to enter. It was all those old monsters, the quasi-saints, competing for it in the wilderness. Unexpectedly, a casual remark from the other party has allowed her to obtain this spot for free. She was about to refuse when the boy's calm voice rang out again, carrying an undeniable tone. Also, during my free time these past few days, I've compiled some of my learning experiences. Among them are my insights into sword intent, which I've recorded in a jade tube. You can take a look. It might be of some help to you. As soon as he finished speaking, a ray of light appeared on Nangong Chen's slender fingers. It was a high-grade jade tube that emitted a misty, immortal aura. He waved his hand, and the jade tube automatically flew to Gu Mingling. Gu Mingling was immediately stunned. She subconsciously caught the item, and after realizing what the other person had said, she blinked her beautiful eyes and flipped through it roughly with her fingertips, as if it were a precious treasure. After a few breaths, her breathing became heavy, her eyes burned, like a hungry wolf encountering a flock of sheep, and her fingers moved faster and faster involuntarily. Is this the understanding of perfect sword intent? Just a quick glance at the explanations of sword intent above enlightened her, sparking a flood of inspiration, and she immediately gained some insights. If her brother hadn't been there, she would have wanted to sit cross-legged on the ground to verify the ideas in her mind. However, since there were still people around, she suppressed the urge to continue reading and quickly put the jade tube back in her hand. Nangong Chen took in her expression a hint of something in his eyes. How is it? Gu Mingling carefully examined the young man's handsome face, confirming that her elder brother had not been possessed by the old monster, before she breathed a sigh of relief and said earnestly, if this unparalleled sword manual were to become known, it would surely shock all sword cultivators in the world, causing them to scramble for it. Although her swordsmanship talent was inferior to her opponents, she was still an outstanding figure in the entire Xiantian domain, so she could naturally see further and deeper than ordinary sword cultivators. The sword insights written by my own elder brother are far beyond what ordinary sword masters with perfect sword intent could ever achieve. The thoughts contained therein not only break through the current framework of Kendo, but also open up new avenues of thought that have never been explored by predecessors. What's even more remarkable are those bold and unique interpretations, with the subtle outline of the perfect sword intent faintly revealed between the lines. This level is far beyond what ordinary sword intent masters can comprehend. Such high praise. Nangong Chen stroked his chin, looking at the other person's excited appearance, and thought to himself. He never expected that a casual remark he wrote down would amaze his younger sister, who possessed twin sword bodies. Brother, how many years have you been learning swordsmanship? Gu Mingling couldn't help but ask. She felt like she was in a dream and couldn't believe that there was such a genius in the world. Even the legendary swordsman Ouyang Xing was far less impressive than his elder brother when he was young. Upon hearing this, Nangong Chen remained silent and did not respond immediately. If he told her that he had only been practicing swordsmanship for a year, wouldn't it be too much of a shock to her young heart? All I can say is that the primordial Dao fruit is simply too heaven-defying. Nangong Chen thought to himself silently. His original aptitude wasn't bad, but it wasn't this amazing either. However, ever since he consumed the primordial Dao fruit in the Nine Heaven Secret Realm, the so-called insurmountable difficulty of cultivating both precious techniques and divine-grade cultivation methods seemed to have disappeared for him. This is why he was able to master various martial arts techniques so quickly. The primordial Dao fruit may have elevated his already excellent comprehension to a level that is unparalleled in the long history of humankind. Seeing that he remained silent, Gu Mengling seemed to remember something and patted her head in annoyance. She's so stupid. Does she even need to ask such a question? To have cultivated to this level, she must have studied diligently since childhood to reach where she is today. How could she have started learning swordsmanship halfway through? Chapter 571, Heavenly Palace. She glanced at Nangong Chen cautiously and said apologetically, "Brother, please don't be offended." It was Mengling who was being superficial. Nangong Chen was still hesitating whether to speak, but upon hearing her open her mouth, he knew what she had imagined. His eyes flashed slightly, and he waved his hand, following her lead. It's all right. Even though he knew what the other party had misunderstood, Nangong Chen still didn't want to explain because he was really afraid of ruining a little girl's heart for seeking the Tao. It's better to leave some hope. Nangong Chen thought to himself that this was a white lie, and immediately felt much more at ease. Gu Mengling breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing this. She was rather clumsy with words, and had spent most of her time cultivating over the years, so she didn't know much about interpersonal relationships. Especially after arriving in the Divine Dynasty, she felt the lack of this aspect even more. At the events that the Divine Dynasty had asked her to attend, she almost said a lot of wrong things because she was tongue-tied, but fortunately, she was always accompanied by two people. This made her realize that she might not be suited to communicating with people. Now that she is alone abroad, she has become increasingly taciturn and cautious in her speech. However, speaking less has its advantages. People outside think she is not easy to mess with and has a high position of power. Gradually, she has become more leisurely and can devote more time to cultivation. I wonder how Wang Yuxuan and Zhou Wan'er are doing? Unconsciously, two figures appeared in Gu Mengling's mind. One was wearing a light yellow gauze dress with a pure and beautiful face, while the other was wearing a starry black dress, silent and serious, but with a delicate face that made Gu Mengling a little envious. When she first arrived in the Divine Dynasty, she was still confused about everything. It was these two who helped her get acquainted with the place for a while, so that she would have two companions and wouldn't be so lonely. Recalling that time, Gu Mengling's lips unconsciously curled into a smile. Noticing her brother's puzzled look, Gu Mengling told him about it. You mean, Wang Yuxuan, being greedy, stole the spirit chicken raised by the Academy Elder, made it into roast chicken, and after eating it, when the Elder came to her door, she pushed you out and claimed that you were the one who wanted to eat it? They even took the failed pills to the black market to trade with others, taking advantage of the fact that no one dared to report them, and made a fortune, earning tens of millions of spirit stones. As Gu Mengling recounted her deeds one by one, Nangong Chen's eyelids twitched slightly, and the corners of his mouth twitched involuntarily. Gu Mengling nodded seriously and continued. Later, the black market boss couldn't take it anymore and reported the store to the authorities, wanting to arrest Wang Yuxuan. Did you catch them? They caught her, but she ran to me and said I vouched for her, so the officials confiscated my spirit stones. Gu Mengling said weakly, and then added. She said that she would definitely make it up to me when she had the money, and that she needed the money for the time being. I believe her. Nangong Chen was somewhat amused and exasperated. Looking at her, who seemed to be helping the seller even after being sold out, he couldn't help but ask, did she save your life? Gu Mengling shook her head and whispered, I'm new to the Divine Dynasty and don't have many friends I can get along with. They are among the few I can talk to, and I cherish them very much. Nangong Chen now understood. Gu Mengling wasn't ignorant at all. She was just pretending to be confused. Nangong Chen remained silent for a few moments, then looked at her with a complicated expression, feeling a pang of guilt, and said, now that you have broken through to quasi-saint, you should cultivate with your brother. Gu Mengling's beautiful eyes lit up, sparkling like stars under the moonlight. Then she nodded obediently, a slight smile playing on her lips. No one knew what wonderful thoughts were swirling in her mind. After a while, as if she remembered something, she brought it up intentionally or unintentionally. But a few days ago, they seemed to have some important business to attend to, and they left the Divine Dynasty in a hurry. I didn't even have time to say goodbye. They were so mysterious, and they didn't even take me with them. Nangong Chen chuckled, seeing right through her attempt to trick him into revealing information. Wang Yuxuan and Zhou Wan'er were both his personal guards. How could he not know what they were doing? The reason the two were not in the Divine Dynasty was naturally because they were doing things for him. After all, one possesses a spiritual body and a treasure-hunting physique, while the other excels in concealment and escape. It would be a waste if the two of them didn't engage in some petty theft or other underhanded activities. He didn't hide anything and laughed. That day at Red Mountain, during the battle with the fallen sun god, before he died, the fallen sun god threatened me, saying that he had 4 older brothers in the upper realm who would avenge him. I was uneasy, so after returning, I looked up some information about the 5 Sons of Rebellion. Guess what I found? Are you still uneasy? Hearing his words, Gu Mengling glanced at him suspiciously, wondering if her brother was making things up. Nevertheless, she responded and looked at him curiously. What did you discover? Nangong Chen stared at her silently for a long time, then suddenly leaned forward and said in a sinister tone, "We've discovered that those 5 rebellious children aren't human." Gu Mengling was listening intently when she suddenly trembled, her face turning pale. "Brother, don't scare me. Are they people or ghosts?" "Haha, just kidding." Seeing that his goal had been achieved, Nangong Chen smiled slightly, turned around, and continued. "Neither human nor ghost. I searched through ancient books and found that there was no record of their birth in history, only a few words that they came from the origin. The origin is nothing but an empty thing, merely a pretext to appease the world. The records of the 3 states recorded such a passage in their time. One day, in the northern divine continent, a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky. A bright and clear light fell from the sky and appeared in a corner of the heavenly palace, from which came the cries of 5 infants. 5 days after the strange phenomenon disappeared, an old man encountered an infant on the road, whose entire body radiated intense flames, and whose head was crowned with the phantom of a golden crow, the flames raging fiercely. The old man was overjoyed upon seeing this, and named it Fallen Sun. That old man was naturally the holy lord of the Sun God Palace at that time, and the baby he found was, needless to say, the Fallen Sun Godchild. So, this Fallen Sun Divine Child is actually a being who descended from the heavenly palace. Gu Mengling, being intelligent, immediately realized this upon hearing it, and then added, "No wonder you said that the Fallen Sun Godchild wasn't human. He really isn't human." Nangong Chen nodded slightly, his eyes deep, and said his guess. The fact that the Fallen Sun Godchild of the later generations can be so monstrous is naturally not something that the Sun God Palace could cultivate. I guess it must be related to that heavenly palace in some way. The disappearance of the 5 destiny-defying ones and their subsequent resurgence in recent lifetimes confirms my conjecture. The heavenly palace can not only give birth to beings like them, but can also bring good fortune and avert disaster, integrating them into itself to ensure the immortality of their bodies and souls for all eternity. If this heavenly palace can do this, it is no ordinary thing. It is very likely that it is connected to the 5 destiny defenders by fate. So after that, I sent Wang Yuxuan and Zhou Wan'er to the northern divine continent to see if they could find that heavenly palace. Gu Mengling listened intently and now understood why the 2 women had left the divine dynasty. She immediately asked, almost instinctively, "If we find it, what will you do, your majesty?" Chapter 572, Hoping to see you again. First, check if there's anything valuable. If not, dismantle it and let this heavenly palace disappear from the Xiantian domain forever. Nangong Chen yawned and spoke lightly. Then a cold glint appeared in his eyes. Didn't that fallen sun god want his brothers to avenge him? Then I'll just wipe out their stronghold. I don't believe they won't be affected. Upon hearing this, the black dragon bracelet on the boy's hand seemed to sense it, shining brightly and releasing a dragon's might without anger. Gu Mengling couldn't help but shudder. In a daze, she seemed to see a black dragon phantom quietly materialize behind the boy. His dragon eyes were as cold as a deep pool, and as he coiled his body, he exuded boundless domineering power, looking down at her from his superior position. That invisible pressure made her heart tighten, and a chilling cold spread from her limbs. As the boy finished speaking, Gu Mengling finally broke free from the suffocating atmosphere and began to breathe slightly. "I've calculated the time, and they should be back around now." Nangong Chen glanced at the sky and muttered to himself. Gu Mengling remained silent, only secretly observing him, wondering what level her elder brother had reached. Even her father had never brought her this sense of oppression. After a few breaths, Gu Mengling managed to smile and said, "That would be best. The 2 of them often talk about you in court. They miss you so much. They would be very happy to see you. Is that so?" Upon hearing this, Nangong Chen's eyes seemed to be deep in thought, and he sighed inwardly. He had been too busy this past year, and it was inevitable that he would not be able to take care of the feelings of those around him. I wonder if they chose the right cultivation method from the immortal treasury last time. Maybe they can ask the 100 Refinements Divine Scripture to take a look when they have the chance. As they talked, they walked to the pavilion in the courtyard. Gu Mengling was radiant, and it seemed that being with him made her talkative. She chattered on and on about the recent events that had happened in the Divine Dynasty. Nangong Chen had been fighting frequently in the past few days. Although he was not physically tired, he was mentally exhausted. Now that I can relax, I listen with great interest and nod in response from time to time. For example, recently the Divine Dynasty distributed ferocious beast meat to its people on the streets, and every household received 10 caddies of ferocious beast meat from the Purple Mansion. These measures drew cheers from both monks and commoners, who wanted to send their children into the army to serve their country. Furthermore, the Immortal Ascension tournament is approaching. Since the end of the Double Gate battle, many geniuses from the 3 states have come to the capital to challenge those on the list of the Divine Dynasty. Every day, crowds come and go to watch, making it quite lively. Even Gu Mengling was often challenged by people, but those challengers couldn't even withstand a single sword strike from her. Gradually, as the reputation of the Jade Spring Sword Immortal spread, no one came to her door anymore. Meanwhile, the other top talents in the Divine Dynasty were busy, such as Lu Rian, the senior sister of the Sword Sect, Lan Exine, the genius girl from the wilderness, and Zhuing, the holy maiden of the battlefield, etc. They were challenged every day, but could not refuse. Gu Mengling had met them several times, and each time they would pour out their grievances for a long time, which made Gu Mengling laugh awkwardly. Gu Mengling continued speaking until she mentioned something, at which point Nangong Chen's expression changed slightly. I don't know what happened, but a while ago, the list of geniuses from those reclusive families disappeared one after another, leaving many positions vacant. Those geniuses were all applauding and cheering. Moreover, no one has noticed any activity from that reclusive family recently. People are saying that both families have left the 3 states, believing they cannot compete with their elder brother for the top spot on the leaderboard. I think there's something fishy about this. I saw them on the list just a few days ago. They climbed the list so fast. How could they possibly back down? That's not like their domineering style. Moreover, the heirs of the Jun and Z families are rumored to be at the Saint level. Although they are not as powerful as my brother, they have the potential to be in the top 3 at least. No matter how you look at it, it is almost impossible for them to leave the 3 states. Nangong Chen smiled and said, "Oh, then, in your opinion, why do you think their reclusive family disappeared?" That's what he said on the surface, but Nangong Chen was actually thinking to himself, his brows furrowed slightly. Could it be that the news of the destruction of the Jun and Z families by themselves has been kept secret by those forces? Since not a single word has leaked out, this is most likely the case. The reason for the blockade is easy to guess. The karma of reclusive families is too great, and these aristocratic families naturally cannot afford to get involved, for fear of being burned. But now that they've offended such a reclusive family, and are all in the same boat, how can they possibly extricate themselves? Nangong Chen shook his head, feeling that those people were oversimplifying things. Mengling thinks it's because those 2 families had a conflict and started fighting in Zongshen's house. But if they were fighting, how could there not be any news about it? Gu Mengling shared her thoughts, but then seemed lost in thought. After a moment, she suddenly realized what she meant and said, "Could it be that someone knows about this, but deliberately kept the news hidden?" Nangong Chen coughed lightly, replying without batting an eye, "Perhaps. This little girl isn't stupid." Fortunately, Gu Mengling didn't continue the topic. She looked towards the door, pondered for a moment, and said, "Brother, for the past month, every day outside the Crown Prince's palace, there's been a young girl peering inside, as if looking for you. Later, I inquired about her identity and learned that she was the 2nd princess of the Su family, Su Yao, the younger sister of the goddess." Gu Mengling spoke very carefully, afraid of offending him. After all, who in the court doesn't know that the goddess has suddenly disappeared? They just don't know the deeper reasons behind it, and they don't dare to ask. Gu Mengling had heard of the Ice Phoenix goddess back in the Holy Land and admired her greatly, but she never expected to find her after arriving in the Divine Dynasty. After inquiring around, she turned pale and learned that the goddess had disappeared from the Divine Dynasty long ago. Neither her adoptive father nor her elder brother mentioned it, so naturally she dared not bring up the name or discuss the topic. However, since it involved that person's sister, she dared not be vague and immediately spoke up. "Su Yao." Nangong Chen was taken aback. As Su Li's Daoist partner, he was naturally familiar with his sister-in-law's name, but they rarely met. He often asked Su Li to bring gifts for her. Now that Su Li has gone to the upper realm, the already limited contact has naturally been severed. "Now that you've come to me, you won't encounter any difficulties, right?" He immediately looked ashamed and quickly asked, "Did you ask her why she came to see me?" He had been searching for him for a month, but his father hadn't told him anything. If the other party was delayed by some urgent matter, how would he face Su Li in the future? "I asked, but that girl kept her mouth shut and didn't say anything. She said she would wait for you to come back and tell you in person." Seeing the serious expression on the other person's face, Gu Mengling thought to herself, "Oh no," and wondered why she hadn't thought of it sooner or said it sooner. I could only respond quickly at that moment. After he finished speaking, the boy seemed to fall silent for a moment, his brows furrowing slightly. Gu Mengling had never seen her brother, the emperor, show such an expression before. She immediately got up and prepared to summon Su Yao. But just then, a melodious voice, as sweet as a nightingale's, drifted into the room from outside the door. Has my brother-in-law returned yet? If he has time, Suyao would love to see him. Chapter 573 Lingshu Island, Junhuayuan. Lingshu Island, located at the edge of the sky and sea, in the far south, is a suspended island. The spiritual energy on this island is exceptionally rich, far surpassing that of the 3 continents, making it a natural paradise. However, this alone is not enough to attract sages from all over the world. What truly makes Lingshu Island famous throughout the 3 states is its unique advantage in the path to enlightenment. Because Lingshu Island is close to the 9th realm of the upper realm, it is not covered by the heavenly Tao consciousness of the Xiantian domain and is rejected by the heavenly Tao of the upper realm. It can be considered an unclaimed land without any heavenly Tao coverage. Thanks to this, sages can break through to the Saint King realm without any scruples, unafraid of being obliterated by the heavenly Tao. Even evil cultivation methods that are normally intolerable to the heavenly Tao can be used without restraint on Lingshu Island. This is why the reclusive families, whether the Jun family or the Z family, are willing to live here for generations, even if they share this place, rather than seek a place to live in the 3 states. At this moment, on the coast, the Jun family city guard were conducting their daily patrol. The swords they wore at their waists gleamed coldly, flashing brightly on the beach, attracting much attention. Suddenly, a tall city soldier stopped and looked at the turbulent sea, his eyes narrowing as if he had discovered something. No, the fluctuations of today's waves. Something's not right. The city's soldier murmured, his gaze fixed on the ocean not far away. After a few breaths, the black dot in his pupils began to enlarge. The shore was particularly calm, with the air filled with the rustling of sand and the rumbling of the tide. The man's slightly flustered voice sounded rather jarring. The city's military leader noticed his unusual behavior, his expression displeased, and then looked in the direction he was looking. His expression changed drastically very quickly as the waves crashed down 10 miles away, creating splashes of azure blue. A colossal black object slowly rose with the ebb and flow of the next wave. 7 colored rays of light surged from the stern of the ship. Its paint was as cold as ink, and the flag of the Jun family was flying on the ship. Isn't that the ferry the young master and the others went to? Why are they back now? Isn't it time yet? A soldier from the city exclaimed in surprise, his face filled with disbelief. After confirming that he hadn't misread it, the city's military leader patted the tall man sharply and quickly gave the order. Go quickly, go tell the clan leader. Soon, the remaining people looked away, knelt on one knee, and faced the sea with respect, waiting motionless for the ferry to stop, as if it were some kind of ritual. This is a rule established by the Jun family from ancient times to the present. If you see a member of the Jun family, you must obediently kneel down and pay your respects. You cannot show the slightest disrespect. These foreign cultivators were merely city guards who had higher cultivation levels. To put it more politely, they were the proper dogs of the Jun family, and it was impossible for them not to obey. The ferry was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it would reach the shore. The surging waves and the rushing winds made the waiting city guards feel extremely uneasy. Why aren't you stopping? The leader was no weakling, possessing the cultivation level of a god king. He could sense that the enormous creature was getting closer and closer, yet its speed did not decrease at all, causing him some unease. The others were not as powerful as him, and their spiritual senses were naturally weaker, so they could not sense such a long distance. They simply kept their mouths shut and remained silent. After a few breaths, the leader suddenly opened his eyes and roared, "Run!" The sound of air being torn apart was even more intense than their heartbeats. The ferry, as large as a small mountain, did not stop at the shore as expected, but instead sped up even faster, rushing straight ahead like a wild horse that had broken free of its reins. You must know that this is a sacred artifact that is sprinting at full speed. The impact it unleashes is comparable to a saint strike, enough to destroy a city. These city guards belatedly opened their eyes, and when they saw the complete darkness before them, they froze on the spot, as if they had been scared out of their wits. After a while, the remaining leader was panting heavily, his pupils were pale, and his body was covered with a mixture of splattered blood and flesh. Boom! The ferry crashed straight into the city wall. The bricks and tiles on the wall were not expensive, so they broke easily and a section collapsed. A tremendous force emanated from the cockpit, jolting the unconscious old man awake. The old man was filthy and disheveled, with a deep diagonal scar on his face, making him look ruthless and terrifying. After opening his eyes, he glanced around, and his cultivation subconsciously erupted, like a startled eagle. "You thief, don't even think about assassinating me. He roared, his muscles tense. However, as his consciousness unconsciously spread out, and he clearly sensed everything around him, his murky and frightened eyes gradually cleared. "This is Lingshu Island?" Junhuan spoke in disbelief, his trembling voice carrying a hint of excitement at surviving a disaster. Chapter 574. The scorching heat made her somewhat uneasy. Su Yao mustered her courage and said something, then clenched her small hands tightly together, looking nervously at the heavily closed door in front of her. "I hope I won't be turned away again today. So much time has passed. I wonder if my brother-in-law has come back yet? He should be back by now. After all, I haven't heard any rumors about Sanzhou having a brother-in-law recently." Su Yao waited quietly, her mind filled with many thoughts. However, it must be said that the girl was well educated by her family from a young age. She was born graceful and elegant, with her fair swan neck held high. Even when she was nervous, there was never a trace of stage fright in her beautiful eyes. At first glance, it is stunning and makes one imagine that the person behind it must be rich and noble. Several breaths passed without any response. The only sound was the gentle flow of water from the nearby pond. Su Yao sighed softly. This was her first visit this month, and she hadn't expected the other party to be away again. Last month, she came almost every day. Knowing that the other party was busy with his daily affairs, she did not dare to ask her father too much. So she could only visit him on her way home from the academy each day to inquire. Unfortunately, she wasn't home even once. It's unclear whether she simply didn't come back or was deliberately avoiding her. Su Yao shook her head, ruling out the latter possibility. After all, given her brother-in-law's character, he would never do such a thing. She was just making wild guesses. But why didn't we see the princess today? She had some doubts in her heart. Every time she came last month, she would see a figure in white practicing swordsmanship on the mountaintop. The swordsmanship was exquisite and superb, and extremely beautiful. It was even more powerful than the swordsmanship teacher she had seen in the academy. Whenever she encountered it, she would stop and admire it for a while. At first, she thought the other person came here to practice swordsmanship because they felt the mountain was rich in spiritual energy, but after frequently bumping into each other, her thoughts changed. Considering the other person's background and the fact that he always seemed so preoccupied when practicing swordsmanship, she knew that he, like herself, was also waiting for his brother-in-law to return. At first, their encounters were somewhat awkward, but after a while, they understood each other implicitly. Whenever she came, the princess would always be as shrewd as gold, uttering only 2 words, "Not here." Upon hearing this, she found a rock to sit on, watched the other person practice swordsmanship for a while, and then left. This scene played out almost every time the two met. Now that she didn't see him practicing his sword here, she felt a little lonely. They probably went back. Su Yao guessed in her heart, then looked at the door in front of her, not in a hurry to leave, but just stood there in a daze. As her cultivation level increased, her cultivation time became increasingly longer, and she didn't know when she would have to come again. "Brother-in-law, could you please come home and tell your little sister where she went?" She felt somewhat lost, but she didn't blame her brother-in-law. After all, he was incredibly talented and had now broken through to the Saint realm, making him someone from a different world than them, and he had more important things to do. But her sister just disappeared so suddenly. She was a relative she had lived with since childhood. She really wanted to know where she was now, whether she was alive or dead. Just as Su Yao was lost in thought, the gate in front of her, forged from black meteorite iron, opened. Rays of light burst forth from within, illuminating the girl's body, making her silver hair seem to glow. Looking at the girl's high ponytail with silver hair and her eyebrows and eyes that resembled Su Li's, Nangong Chen was momentarily stunned. His hands involuntarily rested on the other person's shoulders, his gaze fixed on the other person, pondering for a long time before finally lowering them with a complicated expression. Su Yao shuddered involuntarily. She had never been touched like this before, let alone by a man. She only noticed that the place the other person was touching was itchy. However, this feeling soon disappeared. She saw the person in front of her clearly. It was her brother-in-law whom she had been looking forward to every day. Excitement and joy gradually replaced everything else. However, she was quickly drawn to the other person's gaze, which was so intense that it made her uneasy. She couldn't help but lower her head and avoid it. Was my brother-in-law really looking at me? Gu Mengling, standing behind, silently took in this scene, feeling a slight stinging in her eyes. Only now did she realize just how deep her brother's feelings for that person were. Perhaps no one in the world could replace them. Su Yao greets her brother-in-law. Su Yao obediently bowed respectfully. Nangong Chen nodded slightly. This was their first formal meeting, and he couldn't help but sized up the other person. Upon seeing that his cultivation had already reached the mid-stage of the Purple Mansion realm, a strange light flashed in Nangong Chen's eyes. He He remembered that the other person was only 16 years old, so this cultivation speed was astonishing. Although this was partly due to the amplification from that spiritual rain, it was still extremely terrifying. It should be noted that even when Su Li was 16 years old, she had not yet reached the Purple Mansion realm. Of course, the conditions weren't what they are now back then. If they were, Su Li's cultivation would have improved even faster. After a moment's thought, Nangong Chen pulled himself together, looked at the slightly nervous girl before him, and smiled. Not bad. It's only been a few months, and you've already reached the mid-stage of the Purple Mansion realm. Such a cultivation speed makes me, your brother-in-law, a little ashamed. Gu Mingling also sensed the other party's presence, and slightly raised her eyes, somewhat surprised. Brother-in-law is joking. My talent is nothing compared to yours. Su Yao was very happy to receive praise as soon as she arrived, but she still shook her head and said softly. What she said was true. The man in front of her was the youngest saint in the history of the Tianyuan domain, and he wasn't much older than her. She genuinely admired and respected her brother-in-law. If it were her, she would be incredibly lucky to break through to the saint realm before she turned 1,000. Nangong Chen smiled, taking it as a compliment, and said gently, "All right, Yaoer, don't stand outside anymore. Jean, come in." After saying this, the three of them walked into the courtyard. Gu Mingling conscientiously poured tea for the two of them, and then casually made up an excuse before leaving. Nangong Chen didn't say anything and agreed. Su Yao wanted to persuade her to stay, but the other party was determined, so she had no choice but to say goodbye. Before leaving, she looked at the other party's back with a thoughtful gaze. So the princess had gone inside the courtyard. No wonder she hadn't seen her outside, and she wondered what the two of them were doing inside. However, to her surprise, the princess, who was usually quite aloof, had such a different side when she was with her brother, and was even more obedient than she was. I returned to the Divine Dynasty at the beginning of the month. I didn't publicize my return much, so not many people in the court knew about it. During my free time, I've been instructing Mingling. Seeing that she was staring at him, Nangong Chen explained, after all, she was his sister-in-law, so as not to cause any misunderstanding. So that's how it is. No wonder I noticed that Princess Sister's strength has improved. Su Yao nodded slightly and responded tactfully, silently processing the information in the other person's words. So my brother-in-law had already returned. It's just a pity she was in seclusion cultivating for the past few days, otherwise she could have come to find him sooner. Su Yao felt a little regretful, but she hid her emotions well. She looked at Nangong Chen with her large eyes and said earnestly, "Brother-in-law, I come to see you today because I want to ask you something. Where exactly did my sister go?" Chapter 575, Seeking Justice. Grandpa emerges from seclusion. The girl's soft, clear voice reached Nangong Chen's ears. His eyes flickered, and he suddenly realized the purpose of her visit. He thought to himself, why didn't her father and the others tell her? Are they deliberately hiding it from her? Or is it that whether or not to let Su Yao know depends on your own thoughts? Su Yao stared directly at Nangong Chen, her bright eyes gleaming as if they could see into his heart, and said softly, "I asked my father and Uncle Nangong before, but they were unwilling to say anything more. Yaoer also knows that this is something she shouldn't know. But lately, Yaoer has been feeling inexplicably anxious and can't help but miss her older sister, so she came to find her brother-in-law. I just want to know, where did my sister go, and is she alive or dead?" Su Yao was, after all, an innocent little girl, and couldn't feign adult composure. Towards the end, her voice trembled with tears, and her eyes gradually drooped. Nangong Chen saw this, and felt a pang of heartache, feeling sorry for the girl in front of him. Considering that the other party is now 16 years old, which is considered adulthood according to the laws of Tianyuan, these things cannot be kept secret forever, and it is time to tell the other party. Nangong Chen slowly recounted Su Li's encounter with the Z family on the South China Sea coast. The time it takes for an incense stick to burn is quickly up. After speaking, Nangong Chen felt a little thirsty and took a sip of the tea in front of him. Su Yao remained silent, processing the information in her mind. She was somewhat shocked and murmured to herself, "We've reached a safe place. Brother-in-law, where do you think my sister might go?" She never imagined that her sister, after such a difficult journey, would be bullied in the 3 states and forced to leave the Tianyuan domain. After a moment's thought, Nangong Chen replied, "It's highly likely that they went to the upper realm, to Mingxian Heaven, one of the 9 heavens." His deduction made some sense. After all, the inheritance on Su Li's body was a human law, and Mingxian Heaven contained 3,000 Dao states with a large human population, so it was possible that she had been taken there. Su Yao's face turned pale instantly, and her eyes reddened. She asked, "The ancient books say that there is a difference between immortals and mortals in the 9 heavens and 10 realms. If you go to the upper realm, will you still be able to see her in this life?" Nangong Chen smiled calmly and replied, "Of course we can see it. The fact that the once hidden families could descend to this Xiantian domain proves that the Xiantian domain must have a passage to the upper realm. Although we only know that the passage is called the Ninth Realm and do not know its location, at least there is hope. Moreover, the Immortal Ascension Conference will be held soon. If you can be valued by the forces of the upper realm, you may be able to go to the upper realm to meet your sister in the future." Upon hearing this, Su Yao nodded gently. "Yao understands. Thank you for clearing up my doubts, brother-in-law. Well, you don't need to worry too much. Her soul lamp is still burning, and I've always seen that she has good fortune. She might be doing even better in the upper realm than you, and I can imagine." Nangong Chen's eyes held a smile as he spoke gently. After such comforting words, Su Yao's mood improved considerably, but thinking of the Z family's actions, she still spoke in a slightly cold tone. "That Z family is truly wicked. They do nothing but heinous things. They'll get their comeuppance sooner or later. When I become strong in the future, I will definitely pay a visit to her and seek justice for my sister." After saying that, Su Yao's small face turned fierce, and she brandished her fists. Coupled with her confident eyebrows and eyes, she had the spirit of a top genius. "All right, then we'll wait until you become strong enough to seek justice for your sister." Nangong Chen nodded slightly, a smile playing on his lips, giving his approval. But secretly he thought to himself, "I just wonder, when you grow up, will the Z family still exist?" After chatting for a while, Su Yao was about to leave. Before she left, Nangong Chen gave her some magical treasures and pills, and gave her some pointers on her current cultivation level. Su Yao was deeply moved by the many gifts she received and wanted to decline them, but Nangong Chen had already made up his mind. After thanking her several times, she finally accepted them, humming a beautiful tune, and rode away on the wind. Unexpectedly, no sooner had Su Yao left than Zhu Ying arrived in a flurry, her striking black phoenix-tail dress concealing her swaying jade feet. Nangong Chen wasn't surprised, since Zhu Ying was one of the few who knew he had returned to the Divine Dynasty. "Master, news has come from the court that the Supreme Saint has emerged from seclusion, and King Tianyuan has summoned me to come over." Zhu Ying quickly bowed before speaking. Nangong Chen nodded slightly, his eyes gleaming, and said, "All right, I'll head over now." After returning to the Divine Dynasty that day, he told his father and others about his plan to go into seclusion to break through to the Saint King realm. However, the old man objected, saying that it was a matter of great importance and that he was still inexperienced, so they should wait until his grandfather came out of seclusion before discussing it further. Nangong Chen had no choice but to obey the old man and spend some time in the Crown Prince's palace in peace. After all, the old man's words made some sense. As the first person in the Divine Dynasty to break through to the Saint King level, my grandfather had accumulated countless years of experience. It was only after being planted by the Imperial Dragon Vein that he gained power and broke through. It is said that on that day, the sky was bright and strange phenomena occurred frequently. Even the sun, moon, and stars dimmed. Unfortunately, Nangong Chen was not in the three provinces at that time, but in the Immortal Treasury, so he missed it. Later, Kong Daoyun, Shura, and several other powerful figures who broke through to the Saint King level all consulted their grandfather for a long time and learned a lot before they were able to break through. Otherwise, if they were to try to comprehend it on their own, even in a place beyond the reach of the heavenly Tao, they would still have no hope of breaking through to the Saint King realm, and it would be a long and uncertain future. There's a huge dividing line between a sage and a sage king, and it is not something that can be crossed so easily. Of course, this also shows that my grandfather, as the first person in this last generation to break through to the Saint King level, has an unfathomable understanding of the entire cultivation system. The old man truly lives up to his reputation as a cultivation fanatic. Nangong Chen couldn't help but sigh inwardly, feeling somewhat fortunate to have been born into this aristocratic family. Although the cultivation method records how to break through, some minor details are far beyond the depth of understanding of someone at this level. Now that his grandfather has emerged from seclusion, with his help, he will have a greater chance of breaking through to the Saint King level. Thinking of this, Nangong Chen's eyes flashed, and he was full of vigor. His snow-white robe fluttered in the air as he and Zhu Ying rode the wind away. Chapter 576, The Leaf Family, the Governor's Office. In the Central Plains, the Leaf Family. After the battle with the demon race, a number of people from the Leaf family died, nearly half of their population, which could be described as a major blow. Fortunately, the young generation was still preserved, and many young people took over the management positions in the clan. Furthermore, with the external threats gone and the Tianyuan Divine Dynasty protecting them, the Leaf family can focus wholeheartedly on making up for the losses of this battle. With everyone working together, they have been living a thriving life in recent days. Of course, This is not the current situation of the Li family's forces alone. Many of the forces involved in the war are in the same state now, which is somewhat puzzling. On the mountain peak, Li Qixin looked down at the scene below, his eyes shining brightly, his brows furrowed with confidence, and said, "In just a few years, our family will be able to recover to its former glory." Soon, a tall and imposing figure walked over, with a golden light between his brows and a radiant gaze, exuding an extremely powerful aura. It was Li Muxiu, who had just finished his cultivation. "This battle has truly been a calamity for my family. After we overcome it, the sky will be clear and the world will be peaceful and prosperous." He nodded slightly, having heard his elder brother's voice from afar. He agreed. Then his gaze deepened as he stared intently at a spot below the mountain. His third eye slowly opened, and a look of shock appeared on his face as he said, "The people from the Divine Dynasty are so fast. Oh, how many people have come, and what are their cultivation levels?" Li Qixin quickly asked, his heart filled with curiosity. After signing the Li family's name on the golden silk scroll that day, they carefully read the matters written in the Righteous Path Alliance. One of the rules was that the Divine Dynasty would send people to be stationed in various forces to collect the taxes paid each year. These people sent by the Divine Dynasty had a specific title, Tianyuan Provincial Governor's Office. Of course, the duties of the Tianyuan Provincial Governor's Office are not limited to this. If any of the various forces encounter problems that they cannot resolve, they can request the Provincial Governor's Office to report to the Divine Dynasty. The Divine Dynasty will then send someone down to take action once every 5 years. However, most of the time, the Provincial Governor's Office is responsible for protecting the various forces. If outsiders attack the forces within the Righteous Alliance, the Provincial Governor's Office will also report the situation and request the arrival of powerful figures. It sounds like the Provincial Governor's Office provides many conveniences and services to the forces of the Righteous Alliance. But if a discerning person thinks about it, they will find that the Provincial Governor's Office's main function is to monitor them. Both brothers naturally thought of this, but Li Qixin asked in order to see the attitude of the Divine Dynasty towards them and what kind of powerful figures they would send to be stationed at their Li family. 1 quasi-saint at the peak, and 5 god kings at the late stage. Li Muxiu responded with some delight. Li Qixin was somewhat surprised, then broke into a wide smile. "Great. I've heard that the highest-ranking official in the Jiang family's governorship is only at the peak of the God King realm, while my family has directly reached the peak of the quasi-saint realm. It seems that the Divine Dynasty and the Crown Prince value our Li family very much." Soon, a ripple appeared in the void, and Li Songhai emerged from it. His aged and ancient eyes swept over the group at the foot of the mountain before turning to Li Muxiu and saying softly, "Muxiu, go and meet them, lest their governor think we are impolite." "Yes," Li Muxiu responded and then disappeared from the spot. 7 gods, from now on, these governors stationed at my house must be treated well and not treated perfunctorily. Li Songhai said this in a rather serious tone. Li Qixin nodded seriously and said, "Grandson understands." Li Songhai's expression softened, his demeanor growing increasingly weary. He said, "My days are numbered, and your father died young. From now on, the Li family will have to rely on you 2 brothers." Li Qixin looked at the old man and realized that his grandfather, who had accompanied him in the past, was now incredibly old, looking listless, with his eyes cloudy as if covered by a layer of mist. For a moment, Li Qixin was speechless, as if a fishbone was stuck in his throat and could only let out 2 muffled sounds. "Yes, my grandfather is getting old, and he has overworked himself this year. I don't know how much longer he has to live. Sir, you can go to the Divine Dynasty. There are 4 Saint Kings there. They must have magical treasures that can break through the barrier of the heavenly Tao. I'll go and beg them." Li Qixin seemed to have thought of something, tears streaming down his face, and said. Li Songhai patted his head and said softly, "Silly child, do you know why the Divine Dynasty didn't come to our aid immediately when the demon race invaded, but waited until the very end?" Li Qixin shook his head, somewhat puzzled, and said, "Could it be that the people from the Divine Dynasty were unaware of the situation, which is why they arrived late? The domineering nature of a Divine Dynasty is ingrained in their bones. They are a group of people who do not tolerate being taken advantage of. Back then, when only a few elders of the Sun God Palace made a move against the Double Pupil, the Heavenly Abyss Divine Dynasty already harbored a grudge. They first destroyed the Sun God Palace, then killed the Burning Tao. Even the remaining sites of the Sun God Palace are still guarded by people from the Divine Dynasty." Li Songhai looked into the distance and spoke, his expression extremely calm. "The wildlands were nearly wiped out by the demon beast army led by the little demon queen. Even though the double-pupiled ones later slaughtered them all, doesn't their Divine Dynasty hate them? They hate the death of their own people more than anyone else. They wish they could wipe out all these ferocious beasts. Under such circumstances, how could they not know the little demon king's movements? It's no exaggeration to say that their divine dynasty has spies all over the 3 states. They suppress their inherent nature in order to pave the way for the righteous alliance and lay the groundwork for the future control of the 3 states by those with double pupils. Do you think your forces, in order to better control you, should be grateful to you or hate you? Li Songhai paused for a moment, glanced at him, and Li Qixin said blankly, "Of course you're grateful to me." Seeing that he was somewhat intelligent, Li Songhai nodded, his gaze deep, and continued. "That's right. That's the divine dynasty's goal. If they destroy the demonic beast beforehand and then force us to join the Righteous Path Alliance, it will inevitably cause dissatisfaction among many forces, thus provoking conflict between these forces and the divine dynasty. But the divine dynasty is extremely clever. It transformed the conflict between the divine dynasty and the forces into a conflict between the forces and the demonic beasts. In this way, they can not only solve the problem of these ferocious beasts, but also suppress the flames of other forces and make us submit to them. In the future, it will also make it easier for the double-pupiled ones to control. It can be said to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, with no harm whatsoever,